We have 27 participants now. Just joining us, put your name, email, or name, job board in the chat. Andre says, listen to last year's edition on YouTube. Thank you for that. Decided to join this year. Excellent. Yep. I'll be putting all the old ones up. So I'll be putting the 2023 Job Board Con up probably this week or next week once I get to it on YouTube for everybody to see. And then 2024 will be live in 2025 for the listeners out there. You can also get this on demand. I believe I changed the settings on Zoom webinar to be on demand. So I'm not exactly sure how it works, but I think if you go back to the original link, you can review it again. I'm also going to put it on YouTube with a password for all the paying participants, and I'll email that out after the show's over at some point. Roger from OrlandoJobs.com and Great Insurance Jobs. Hey, Roger. Isarta from Isarta.com. Jordan from Construction Jobs Australia. All right. A lot of Aussies in the house today. What time is it in Australia? Martin, where are you? It's like, what, 10 o'clock there or something in Austria?
In Austria, it's like 7 p.m.
Oh, 7 p.m.
So
Not too
I
bad.
see Ferdinand joining also from Austria. NGO jobs. See you guys.
Yeah. We're at 28 now. Brian Fox. Hey, Brian. Good to see you. Brian was on last year's show as one of the interviews. Jordan Grant from the UK. Hey, Jordan. Where's the US folks? There we go. Sheila Jordan from Bend, Oregon with Workability. All right. Here we go. All right, guys. So it is 104. So thank you all for joining me today. This is the fourth year in a row I've been running Job Board Con. It's a virtual event, 3-hour virtual event. It's a long one. And for those of you who don't know me, I am a job board consultant. I also run regtechmedia.com out here in the US. And I've been covering the recruiting HR tech space for many years. Was a corporate recruiter, started my first job board back in 1999. And I've been doing this for 25 years now, guys. I'm the OG of job boards, aka the Godfather or something. I don't know. Nick, when did you first start your job board? Yeah, we got you.
Oh, you know what? Actually, I am fairly new. But I know we'll talk in more detail, but maybe 2 years ago, I think it's about a year now where I've owned it solely. And
Okay,
then
that's a good.
another year before that with my previous partner.
Nice. Yeah, I'm curious to get your thought because you're kind of a newbie in the space. So
Absolutely.
we got Sarah coming on the show at the end. She's another veteran. Martin, when did you first start Jobico or get into the job board business?
So Chavico has been started 13 years ago, but it
13.
evolved out of the job board space. So the founding team was building job boards since like 25, like 2005. And I joined 7 years ago. But I was a developer on the former job board company. So I was a developer back in 2007. So I'm coming more from the technical space
Mhm.
and returned to the advertising job board space in 2017, actually. Yeah.
Nice. All right. And yeah, shout out to Jobico. They are today's sponsors. So jobico.com for all your job board software solutions. And Martin, yeah, give us a quick introduction to the software itself and also what's new with you guys. Anything new with the platform?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks first for inviting me. We're proud to sponsor. I think it's the first edition. We just chatted a little bit before we started of the JobBoardCon. So for those who don't know Chabico, we are a job board software provider. So we're a white label job board software provider. We're powering job boards all across the world, big sites, smaller sites, niche sites, or generalist sites. So we have grown to about 300 job sites all across the globe. From our most recent clients, there's clients like Workplace Diversity in the US. It's a big diversity network. PandaLogics, the job network, is now also using Jobico. We have United Way Worldwide, Think Publishing, Hire CNC, or aviationcv.com. It's just some of the most recent family members of the Jobico platform.
Nice.
We also recently launched a new platform. So it's API driven, API powered. And we also launched a new product, which is called Jobico Air, which is a programmatic performance tool built for job boards. So if you want to learn more about that, go to jobico.com. It's jobiqo.com. And you can also download a couple of resources, white papers about strategy, business models, or buy versus build guides. So it's jobiqo.com/resources. So yeah, back to you, Chris.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, that's, again, thanks for being a sponsor. And Martin, last question. What's the, you don't have to give me the name, but what's the biggest job board you have as far as sales go? Can you give me a
In
sense of
job
that?
board sales, it's actually the former Monster job site in Finland. So they moved from the Monster Tech to the Jobico Tech, and
Oh,
I
nice.
think it makes about 10 million plus in revenue, like 11 million US dollars.
Very cool. And what's the average revenue for maybe your client base? Do you have a number like that you could share with us?
Really ranges. It really ranges. So we have different options and models. So it ranges from something like 50K a year. We also have nonprofit job boards, and it goes up to 10 million. But I think the average is something between like it's around 250 to 500K on average. But we are also onboarding, like we have an enterprise version where we onboard also larger ones, and then there's like in between 700 and 1.5 million in revenue. The demand is growing, interestingly. So we also see a couple of new joiners. So I think after a wave of kind of consolidation during COVID, which was quite difficult for some job sites, from 2022, it was getting back some interesting new platforms in the market. So we get a growing number of new joiners. It's really interesting. And whenever there is a new person joining running a job board, spinning off a job board, it's if you're new to the industry, you are not part of the problem. You bring in new ideas. You ask questions like, why are you doing this like that, and why are you doing this? And it's really refreshing because there's still so much demand in there, and there's lots of interesting ideas. And it's I think it's a interesting venture that you can tap into, but it's also a lot of work. So it's nothing that you can do on the side and that just make a lot of money on the side. You really need to focus. I think there's some great examples of job board owners that invested a lot of time, and they really created great places for candidates and employers.
Well said, Martin. Well said. Appreciate that. All right. Well, you can feel free to stay as long as you like, Martin, and watch the show, of course. You can chime in whenever you want, obviously, or you can go on mute if you like to. Let's see. Let me go over the agenda for everybody. Let me share my screen while I'm doing that so we can get rolling here. Share screen. Okay. All right. Can you guys see my doc here? No. So we're going to go about 3 hours today. Job board makeover case study for the first 30 minutes or so. I'm going to talk about content strategies for niche job boards. I just launched a new niche job board, and I'm going to show you kind of how I'm approaching content on that job board itself. I do have an ebook on content for job boards, but I'm going to kind of go show you some real world life here examples here about how I approach content for a niche job board, particularly. Then we're going to bring on Nick from FCO Jobs. You can see him there on the call. He's in Minnesota. Then we'll bring on FlexJobs founder Sarah Sutton. Sarah has been in the business for since 2007. I have to go back and it's been a while. I think she's a 20-year veteran of the job board space. She just sold flexjobs.com, which is probably the most successful remote job board in the history of the internet. And to bold.com, which is a career advice company / platform. And we'll talk to her about how she got started. She is one of the few people that ever make money off seekers in any kind of real way. And so I'm really keen to hear about her thoughts on how she did that. And then we'll round it up with just kind of an ask me anything with whatever time we have remaining there, I'm going to shoot for 45 on that. So it'll be kind of just a live consulting session, talk about your challenges right now, what you might need help with. And by the way, if you guys need help out there on the call, I am hireable. For marketing work, operations work, SEO work, pretty much anything that has to do with a job board. So we can talk about that later. All right, guys, let's roll in. I can't see the chat while I'm doing this here, so just bear with me. And just check it real quick. Okay, all right. So, all right here.
If you like, Chris and I, we could just ask questions when somebody's posting questions. If that
Yeah, that'd be great
convenient.
if you could do that for me. That'd be awesome. All right here. So let's talk about my client employee diversity. So employee diversity is a diversity job board that's been around since 2003. You can see here. And I started working with them last August because their business was kind of going down. It was going down. So it was not spiraling, but it was going down year after year, month after month. And I came in and took a fresh look at what was happening with the business to try and kind of stop that bleeding and start to reverse that trend, right? It's run by a guy named Raul Ray. I think he's not on the call today, but he did sign up. And he's a immigration attorney out in California. He started the site back in 2003. So he's busy with his, with his attorney business a lot. He's got a couple of part-time marketing folks that I've been working with in the past 6 months to kind of help also, number one, teach them how to do marketing for a job board, but just kind of guide them along the way here. I'm kind of acting as a marketing manager in that respect. When Raul and I got together, I kind of said, look, Raul, let's do, your site kind of needs a makeover bit here, and just some fresh eyes and to help reverse some of the trends here in terms of traffic, sales, and things like that. SEO as well, which we've definitely reversed that trend on the SEO front. Let me show you quickly what the site used to look like. I did a Wayback Machine screenshot. It's not the clear screenshot, but I want to show you some things, particularly on the home page. You can notice here, it's got a pretty long navigation menu up here on the top. It's got a lot of wording on the cover image. It's got these 4 boxes here, which we've streamlined since. And that kind of gives you a sense of what it was looking like versus today, which is this site here. So I've gone in, I've cleaned things up, and I'm going to go over the kind of the 12 things that I did to this site today. Hopefully give you guys some takeaways here on things you can do on your own for your job boards as well. So let's start on the homepage. Let me get my notes out here. And I did a number of things on the homepage to just streamline and simplify things. First of all, the homepage for any job board, you need to target, the real estate on there needs to target employers as well as seekers. You should do that in multiple places. So one of the first things I did was I simplified the navigation menu into these 4 drop downs here. And by the way, this site's on Smart Job Board platform, by the way, smartjobboard.com. They've been on here for a good number of years, I think. So we took that long, that long menu here you see of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different buckets. And I brought that down to 4. I simplified things. And we just move stuff to what's important here. With a navigation, you want to focus the audience, whether it's employers or seekers, into doing what they want to do. And they are the first 2 items on this navigation menu. All right, search, post resumes, search jobs, FAQs. Employers, learn more, post jobs, search resumes, then pricing, and then the blog. That's really all you need to have. And then, of course, the sign up and sign in buttons too. But beyond that, you don't need anything else extra on that navigation. You want to funnel the audience into the site as much as you can from a usability standpoint. I also streamlined the page a bit. So there were actually used to be 4 boxes up here. Now there are 2. So we took away some of the content on the page, again, to streamline it. There was just too much information there. Again, if you look at that screenshot here, some of the stuff wasn't relevant anymore. We got rid of that and just streamlined it to make it simpler and easier to read overall. I'm still tweaking this site too, right? I'm constantly thinking about ways to streamline any kind of job board design, and I'm probably not done yet with this site, so just keep that in mind. We've got just an ad here for employers that talk about how we can scrape them. And then we've got, featured diversity jobs. So one thing I did as well from a SEO standpoint was just including these words in here, because this is the D&I, diversity and inclusion job board. And you see these words a lot on the homepage. Diversity and inclusion jobs here on the cover image. Featured diversity inclusion jobs for the employers. That's more of just this general statement. And you got this one down here, community diversity inclusion hiring. Featured diversity jobs. Like instead of saying featured jobs, include a keyword there for your niche, whatever your niche is, right? Featured marketing jobs, featured IT jobs, whatever it is. These are little things you can do on your homepage, for example, just to help with your overall SEO and Google and the audience who's coming to your site. You don't want to have a niche job board and just have a bunch of words that say jobs on there. You want to say the niche plus the word jobs, right? Whatever that is, marketing, tech, remote, whatever it is. And so they also had us, so we just put in the featured jobs on the homepage that basically are paying clients. I got rid of all the other job listings they had on the page that were just aggregated jobs from some of the backfill partners as well. On your homepage, you should only be basically showing the jobs that people pay for. If you don't have that, just the latest ones then. But you want to give them an extra value of the homepage real estate, in my opinion. And then we've got the blog here. The blog is something that is on that list as well. Now, let me just run you through the list, and then we'll kind of talk more about it, about the 12 things here. So the badging, let's start there. So one thing I did was, this is a 20 plus year old website. And so to me, that's a marketing tactic I want to use, right? So if you look at the logo here, your source for diversity hiring since 2003, right? That was not anywhere on the website until I got here. Now it's there. It's under the logo. It's in other places as well right here. And I also made a badge for the website. It's at the bottom actually here, but here's the badge, right? And this is on a lot of the marketing materials we use as well for the email campaigns, things like that, right? So I want employers to know this site's been around since 2003. That gives the site credibility, immediate credibility in the eyes of both seekers and employers, particularly the employers. If a site's been around since 2003, it's doing something right. It's getting traffic, and it's probably worth posting a job on here, right? That's the message you want to send with something like this. So if you do have any kind of site that's been around for at least a couple of years, I say more than 5 years or older, talk about that, right? That's a marketing tactic you can take away and leverage. It's only going to help you. It's not going to hurt you. That's the point here, right? So you want to highlight that aspect of your site, particularly if it's an established job board that's older than 5 years. Anything older than 5 years tends to, if you stuck around this long, you're making money, you're getting traffic, all right, you're a viable job board essentially. But that's what we did here with the badging for employee diversity. So put that everywhere you can, in your logo, on your homepage, on the footer, in your emails, on your social media channels, everywhere. You have a brand presence. You want to talk about the age of your site if that's appropriate. All right. We talked about the homepage streamlining, less content, more keywords. So again, go through your homepage and just look at places to add keywords for your phrasing, your niche. And maybe Nick can talk about this later on, but find out what your core niche phrase is. In this case, it's diversity and inclusion jobs. And you want to leverage that everywhere in your website, homepage, footer, about page, even maybe in the browser title stuff as well. You can see here, the browser title, employee diversity diversity and inclusion jobs is the main phrasing there. So everywhere you want to do that, go and relook at your site and add those keywords. Pricing. Here's another big problem I see with job boards. So these guys had like 15 or 16 different products on the pricing page. I've brought that down to 9. And here's what the pricing page looks like now. I've simplified it and streamlined it from all the packages. So they literally had 50, maybe even more. They had standard postings, single, 5-pack, and 10. They had featured job, 5-pack, and 10. They had like multiple variations of each of these. And we've changed a lot of that since then. So you need to simplify. I wouldn't have any more than 9 products on a job board pricing page. I still kind of think it might be too much more, but it's working for now. Once we made the change, I saw an immediate effect on sales. They also had things like, put your lowest price product first. I think we had it. Originally it was on the right, maybe, or on the second level. And so this was the number 1 seller we were getting, and I wanted to reinforce that. And so I I changed the order of these to the standards on top. Those are your low price points. Then you get the featured 160, 500, 900, right? You can see it goes up in price. So they're there. And then this is just a homepage feature. And then the limited for 6 or 12 months. Those are the most expensive packages, right? These are the hardest ones to sell, of course, because they're the most expensive. But the easiest ones to sell are right here, top of fold, above the fold on your browser. And you want employers to see this first, in my opinion, right? Show the least possible price they have to pay to do business with you, particularly for first-time clients, as you're courting them. And so streamline your pricing, guys. No more than 9, ideally maybe 6. I'd like to see. And particularly if you're new, I don't think you need a lot of packages anyway, because you're new. Just have some of the basics: a single, a 5-pack, a 10-pack, and maybe an unlimited. That's about it. Maybe you just need a single, a 3-pack, and an unlimited to start with. That's generally speaking where I put new clients, something like that. So a single for X price, a 3-pack or a 5-pack, and then unlimited for the year, something like that, right? Simplify things. Don't make things too confusing, because it's just going to cause paralysis when somebody goes here to buy a package. You want to encourage drive-by postings, and that's what streamlining your pricing page does, like this. Nice, clear, easy to read buckets. Nothing confusing here. Simple pricing. No 99 cents on these. Just simple 3-letter, 2-number prices there, and it's just simple, easy, and clear for the audience. So that's next on the list. Increasing pricing. So one thing also I did was I increased the prices, and we streamlined a bit. We actually I lowered some of the unlimiteds as well on here. They were a little bit more expensive than I would have liked. But we took the standard posting from 75 to 85, just a simple $10. And now every year I'm going to make them increase their price $10 a year on that kind of basic package there. Right? They're adding value every year. They're older, they get more traffic, they have more emails, right? So every year you're in business, you can raise prices. Not a lot, but you can raise them, right? I only raised it $10. They had never raised prices in 10 years until I got here, right? Now they're making more for that single posting than they weren't before. It's not a lot of money, but again, it adds up to your bottom line over the course of over a year, right? So we streamline those. I think this went from 150 to 160. I think I lowered just slightly, and we lowered the limiteds, maybe like $1,000, something like that. Overall. So streamlining and increasing your pricing every year is something you should think about doing, like 10% roughly, something like that, 5-10%. Particularly if you have more traffic than they did in day one, right? Obviously you should. If you've been online for a year now, you have more traffic than you started with. You should anyway. It's a general rule of thumb. So you're adding more value to that paying customer as a result. All right. What else did I do? The blog content. So they weren't blogging very well. They actually had a separate blog, which they were blogging on. And to me, 2 sites, it's confusing the SEO, right? If you're going to blog, Yeah. Nick agrees. If you're going to blog on the site. Don't blog on another site to try and drive traffic to your job board, right? Just blog on the job board. Pretty much every job board software now has blogging content on there, a CMS. Smart Job Board's no exception there. And I went in and they had a writer already they were doing one article a month, and she was pretty decent. I took a look at her stuff, although some of it was a little bit ethereal and wasn't really looking at the keywords that I was liking. So we started blogging again on the site. I've written some of this stuff. The writer's written some of this stuff as well. And I brought that back to the job board itself on the homepage. So we're surfacing that content. Let me show you just a bit about the blog that we started to do here. So this one here was from the writer they have. I think they charges her like $300 to write these. They're pretty lengthy as well. And she does do her keyword homework on these. She either pitches us or I pitch her to do a topic. So they're pretty long and good. And I've done stuff like this one here, which I consider like very, niche relevant content. And this page here is actually ranking. I think we got like 100 clicks off Google in the first month of this article that I had her write. So the idea was, okay, make a calendar for diversity job fairs across the country in 2024, right? Employers love content like this. And so she went out, the writer, and looked down, searched online, found those fairs, and basically put them all on the list for us across the country. And now this page is ranking. It's gotten over 100 clicks so far in the first 30 days or something like that. And so I knew this would be good keyword content for Google, and I was right. And so I'm starting to focus more of the blog articles around that stuff, and we'll talk more about content next. But this is a great example of niche relevant content that you can do today. And all we're doing here is we're curating content, right? We're just going out, researching stuff and putting it into one big article. And that's value for the employer, even seekers as well, looking at this, right? If you're in these cities, you can go find work, or you can go advertise for work, advertise your jobs to an audience in person. So there you go.
Chris, we have a question from John Innes from Think Publishing. What do you think about AI content for blogs?
So I'm generally a fan of it. And I'll talk about this more in the content section, but yes. And I'll show you exactly, John, how I do that. I like to kind of mix AI content with some real content. I like to have it rephrase stuff, but yeah, we'll get into that. Yeah, definitely for sure. Good question. All right, here, let's see here. We are at 131, so I gotta start wrapping this one up here. So we talked about navigation, cleanup, less choices, more focus on your tasks. The newsletter, they were doing no newsletters. Yeah, every job board should be sending out a monthly job seeker newsletter and a monthly employer newsletter. There's no excuses, guys. Now, there are ways to automate that. You can basically take your blog RSS feed and push it out through an RSS feed to your list automatically. So all you can do is blog, and the newsletter does the rest, essentially. But yeah, you got to start targeting newsletters. You have to remind your audience you exist out there, right? Both the seeker and the employer. And I see Sarah's joined us. Hey, Sarah. So if you're not doing a newsletter, start doing that. If you need help, I'll help you. But yeah, get it out there. That's a channel you own. You have emails of employers and seekers. If you're not leveraging those emails, you're not getting traffic, right? You need to maximize your traffic. And you do that. One of the ways you do that is through your newsletter as well. Discounts for past customers. So I made an effort with our salesperson to go back and send discounts to every customer we've ever had on the site. It hasn't worked out as good as I hoped. I think for some reason it's even hard to give away discounts sometimes, but we're gonna keep trying. I'm gonna keep pushing it. Eventually, people are gonna take advantage of that, right? So go out and create a 10% discount code for a past customer, or even when you get a new customer, like when they post a job, like immediately send them a 10% discount code, for example. A new CRM marketing campaign. So we initiated that. We're using Insightly is the CRM there, but I got a list off Lead Candy. LeadCandy.io is a great lead gen tool for you guys. So if you want a list of HR managers, talent acquisition managers in whatever niche you're operating in, like go to Lead Candy, pay them. It's probably less than $1,000. They'll give you a list. I got a list of 50,000 TA people across the US for like $500. And that's part of our new marketing campaign for employee diversity.
Also another best
Yep.
practice for job seeker newsletters. Is there anything you could add on what you mentioned?
You talk about stuff you can do on the websites, right? Instructions, how to post a resume, how to sign up for a job alert, that kind of stuff, as well as any of your blog content. If you're blogging already for the seeker and employer, send them that content in the newsletter, right? Drive traffic to it. That's generally how I use job boards. And every employer email, make sure there's a big button on there. Hey, post a job here. Takes them right to your pricing page, things like that. You got to think like a marketer here. And that's really what running a job board is today, guys. It's an internet marketing business. I tell that to every new client I have. It's probably the first thing I tell them when they do a conference call with me. Feature resumes for seekers. So one thing I added, and it's starting to work now on employee diversity, is now you can actually, as a job seeker, you can pay to feature your resume in the resume database. Resume database has thousands of resumes in there. And so if you don't want to be lost, you can actually feature yourself at the top of the resume database for $10. And I put that in place last month. We've gotten 3, right? It's not a lot, but it's 3 we didn't have before. It's $30 that goes towards the bottom line of that job board. And it's free money, essentially, right? You're providing a value for the seeker there. It's cheap. It's not, it's nothing almost. But again, it's free money if you're willing to take it. Sarah is a great example of how to do that. We'll talk more about later. You're not charging them an arm and a leg, right? You're just charging them a tiny fee to highlight their resume and put it at the top of all the other resumes. And that's a valuable service. I've done that with many job boards and it's worked. Trust me, guys, if you have any kind of traffic, if you put in feature resumes, you will sell a few of those each month. It's free money. So why not do it?
There's a lot of around the newsletters. There was another question. If you recommend to run 2 separate newsletters, or if you run one for both employers and seekers?
Yeah, 2 separate newsletters, one for employers, one for seekers, because it's a different audience. They have different clicks you want them to do. Get a pricing page versus post a resume page, right? Career advice content versus, recruiting advice content. So keep that in mind.
There was another comment on the fostering the importance of newsletters from Fred Carver. So all about newsletters, as it seems.
Yeah. I second the importance of newsletters. Effective publishing is good. Yep. Very good. Thanks, Fred. Appreciate that. I see that there. Sarah says, hi, sorry to interrupt. Totally agree with newsletters. Very good, Sarah. Yeah. Awesome. All right, guys. I think that about wraps it up. 2 other things. I added more jobs to the platform. So we went from like 25,000 to 50,000 jobs through a partnership with eQuest. And I did some internal email changes. I do want to show you one thing though. That's about the SEO. So you can see here, I took over SEO in August of 2023. And you can see here with the trend lines, this is the last 6 months. So before SEO, I got there, we were averaging 1,000 daily impressions. And after my SEO, 10 to 15,000 daily impressions. So I have 10x'd impressions. And before SEO, 10 clicks a day to 100 plus clicks a day over here. This dip is from the holidays, Christmas, New Year's, things like that. That happens a lot. But we're back up again now towards where we were back in October, November there, and starting to gain more clicks and stuff. So yeah, I've been pretty happy with the SEO results. We're not done yet, of course, but we look at the trend. We've basically completely reversed that SEO trend by bringing over the blog, refocusing on the keywords, getting more jobs in the system. That helps you with, Google for Jobs content. And just all those things combined, some backlinks as well. And this is what the results have been over the last 6 months. So I'm very pleased with this so far. Definitely not happy as far as total numbers yet. I want to get it higher, but it's been off to a good start here so far. So, all right. Any other questions on that? We're going to head into the content section.
Was one last question. If you again from Fred, if you could only have done one of these 12 changes, what would it have been?
One of the changes. Great question. Man, that's a tough one. I'll give you a couple because one's just not going to cut it, but definitely definitely the let me look at here. The badging, I'd say, number one, the homepage streamlining, and probably the blogging stuff, I guess. There isn't one answer there. It's a bunch of stuff, right? You have to do a comprehensive look at something like this when you're doing any kind of makeover like that. But yeah, just if you're going to prioritize stuff, streamlining is easy. It's just that just takes an eye, and you go on there and just edit it stuff. The blog is much more of a long-term, task for you, things like that. But and you can automate stuff. I automate the newsletter stuff, not with this client, but with some other job boards I do. And it's the CRM stuff, some of that's automated. Once you set the feature resume, it's in place. You just set it and forget it. Never have to worry about it again. Like it is promote it. So those are some things to take away. All right, here. Let's talk about content. One other thing I did too on the welcome emails, like I'm driving traffic to the social media platforms as well. That every job seeker gets, right? Driving traffic to the social media channels too. Help grow those. They weren't doing a good job with social media as well. So I've kind of reinvigorated those channels as well. Because again, those are channels you own and you want to leverage them as much as possible with that stuff. All right, guys. So that's employee diversity. Shout out to Raul, Sophia, and Ivana, my clients there. And I'm going to see them tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow's our weekly call. So, all right, let's talk about content. And my new job board here, hrtechjob.com. So I launched this in January, guys. And it's running on Niceboard. My client, one of my advertisers, Niceboard. Nice enough to kind of give me a free instance of the software. So as part of what I do a lot of implementations for new job board owners, and I recommend software, and I like to get my hands dirty, so to speak. So I run a number of job boards today, one on Smart, one on Niceboard. Of course, there's also Jobico out there. Here is what the site is. So I launched it in January. And let's talk about how I'm approaching content with this new job board. Obviously, I've got jobs in here for the industry. So it's a industry-focused site for just HR tech listings. That could be with a vendor like Remote or HiBob or ServiceNow or WorkVivo, which is actually owned by Zoom. Or it could be a job at an employer like for running HRIS or a payroll system or Workday or stuff like that as well. So that's the niche here. But let's take a look at my blogging activities for this new job board here. So I've gotten, I don't know, they've done, looks like about 15 or so, something like that so far. And here's how I'm approaching content with HR Tech Job. So number one thing I'm doing, I'm profiling people in the space. Okay, and you can see that here with Devin, with Raul, with Heather over at the Muse, with Quincy over here from Harry, and I got a couple more in the works right now. And so if you look at this page here, so this is kind of a twofold reason I do this. A, I get content out of it, content I don't have to write, essentially, and I get clicks, right? So this latest one here with Devin. So Devin runs digital content over at Phenom.com, which is a big hiring software company based out of Philly. Shout out to those guys. I'll be in Philly, by the way, in April. If anybody else will at the IM Phenom conference. So basically, I sent Devin 5 questions over email to answer about his job, how he does his job. And he replied back with answers to those questions. And essentially, I cut and paste that content word for word onto this blog post. So it literally took me 10 minutes to come up with the questions and 10 minutes to actually post this thing. Maybe creating the image is probably longer than actually posting it. And so I got free content from him that he wrote essentially, that I curated with the questions. And then I tagged him on social media. So look at, let me go to LinkedIn here. And I'll show you the post that I did for him. By the way, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you like. If you haven't already. Let me actually grab my URL here, throw it in the chat. And so I tagged Devin on social media. And then he tagged him, he liked it first, and Phenom shared it. And it drove impressions to that post. So let me see here where that post is. You guys, you can see this. There he is. Okay, so I posted a bunch of times. So 953 impressions on LinkedIn. So 7 likes, right? I'm not sure how many clicks it got. Actually, let me go look. Actually, I'm not going to look now, but it's at least dozens of clicks probably to that listing on my page. So it drove clicks, and that's how you do a blog post like this in tandem with social media. So I'm leveraging Devin's social media as well by doing something like this. I'm leveraging his company he works for. People at his company saw this post, they liked it, they clicked it, they read it. And it's great content. It's easy content to do. And so I'm planning on doing this. I'm trying to do this once a week on the site. It's a little bit of work finding the people, but if you have a network already, just start doing something like this. Because it's easy content to get you going. I know a lot of people aren't great at content. If they're starting a job board, well, you either need to find somebody who is good at content or do stuff like this, do hacks like this to help you. And you can use AI. We'll get to that in a second. But this is how you do, one of the ways you do niche job board content when you're starting out here. Start highlighting people in the niche to do this with. That's how you make a name for yourself in your industry, whatever you're doing out there. It's partly how you do it. Okay, let's look at what else I've done. Here's another post. And this one I'm curating content, but I'm also using the tagging features on social media as well. So every month, part of what I do on here, and I do this religiously, is first of all, I scour the internet for my industry here, for HR tech. That's what I work in. That's where my network is, particularly on LinkedIn. And I whenever I see somebody's changed jobs, I save that post on LinkedIn. I'll add it to my saved on Facebook or wherever I saw it, or I'll retweet it so it's in my profile somewhere on Twitter. But I basically I'm on the lookout for this night and day. So I'm a bit of a news junkie, guys. So just warning you. I create a list of executive movements across the industry. I publish that every at the end of every month. I then tag each company on social media, particularly on LinkedIn, and sometimes the people as well. So I did that as well recently. Let me show you that post. Here we go. So again, 940 impressions, 10 likes. Let's look at the analytics here. LinkedIn's analytics suck actually, but anyway, it got 1,000 impressions almost, and it got probably a few dozen clicks at least. All right, so that's part of how I do it with a post like that. So curate executive moves in your space and publish that as a piece of content. Now, some of this stuff came off press releases, so I scour sites like Business Wire. They actually have an HR tech section, which I bookmark right here. This is the wrong site. Sorry, actually, PR Web or PR Newswire. Here we go. This is the Human Resources Workforce Management list. And generally speaking, as where HR tech content lives. So I just check this daily, probably twice a day, beginning of the day, end of the day. And I find these articles about, people who are changing jobs in the space. Here's one from Lattice. So I'll simply cut and paste, the opening sentence of that. You can see it here on, on these here. These are all basically cut and paste off press releases. Yes, it's duplicate content, but Google does not care about that. Okay, Nick, can you talk more about that duplicate content? But I've been copying and pasting content for 10 years. It's never hurt me. In fact, it's helped me when it comes to Google. Nick, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. But as long as you're, I'm not copying the entire thing. I'm just copying the initial, the basics here, right? About that role. Now, to the guy's question about how to leverage AI and do something like this, here's how I would do that. So I would take this, let's say this was the exact phrase I use. It may be, it may not be, but I would go to Gemini, which is here. And I would say, okay, for that initial press release. So what I do a lot is with the press releases, I'll cut and paste the entire thing, but I'll rephrase both the title of the press release and the opening paragraph, essentially. And so that is, it's a mix of new content and old content or duplicate content. So I'll say, okay, Gemini, rephrase this statement into an opening paragraph. I can spell her. Then it's going to give me a brand new paragraph that it wrote. That's all I need to make that post essentially a little bit different. That's my goal here with AI and these press releases. And I do this a lot, guys. I have 2 news sites or 3 news sites that I use to curate content in HR Tech space, hrtechfeed.com, criticheadlines.com. That's all duplicate content on those sites. Those sites are getting 12,000 monthly visitors a month, almost all on the back of duplicate content. I'm not copying the entire listing on those sites. It's pulling in a snippet of the press release or the article. But that's how you use AI, something like this. Or you can actually write the whole thing, right? You can use AI to create stuff. Now, AI sometimes doesn't get it right. So I've been a pretty good writer all my life. My best subject was probably English coming out of school. So I'm a pretty good writer. I do edit everything I push out there usually. So if it doesn't sound right, I take it out. I do a quick editing scan. I will change a word here and there. I take out a lot of like the superfluous stuff that companies like to put on there, like game changing and that kind of stuff. I hate those words, but I do take a lot of stuff out. But you can basically rephrase stuff with a tool like Gemini. It's hard. I think I've tried rewriting stuff and it doesn't like that rewriting term. I haven't tried it lately, but yeah, try that rephrasing statement into an opening paragraph, and give it the cut and paste the paragraph you want it to do and start there. You can either build on that yourself or you can cut and paste the rest of it there. So, all right, what else? Again, just regular press release stuff. Here's one this one I did on my own essentially. It's a very short article. I use this mainly for clickbait, for the social media channels. I didn't really do it for SEO. I grabbed the Super Bowl commercial, wrote about it a bit, and that's it. That's a blog post. It literally took me 5 minutes to do that. Very simple. What else? It's about being timely with the industry here. That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to make this a resource section, essentially, right? I'm doing some roundup as well. I have to be careful here because my other site, HR Tech Feed, that's what that site does. It's essentially a roundup. So anything I don't post on that site, like things like awards, just little stuff I don't really consider news that much, I will just round up. Again, this is all cut and paste. And again, I push social media. I use it more for clickbait, less for SEO, but it's free content, right? That's how I'm leveraging the site. I'm one guy. I run 10 different websites, guys. So I don't have time to spend 6 hours a day on each site writing content. That's for sure. You have to leverage stuff out there. You have to reuse it. And this is how I do it with this roundup. What else? There's the January 1 for HR techs, for HR execs. Again, more news like awards. You know, I'll take this, I'll go and I'll tag Greenhouse and Phenom on social media. I didn't do it for the SEO. I did it for the clicks, right? But it was free, easy to do. And I think it offers value to the industry. And some other stuff, like what else did I do on here? What is HR? This I did for SEO. I have to go see how this is ranking. I haven't checked yet, but what is HR Tech? And I actually had AI help write this. So I think I give me 10 ways HR technology serves employers, that the ChatGPT or something like that. It gave me this answer. And I augmented part of it. I probably wrote half of this and it wrote half. Yeah. I probably should have done a longer post looking at it now, but so there you go. There's some ideas for, around content. And let me just see what else I can talk about here. So the press release stuff. So PR Newswire is one to go look at, and you can just search here, like search your, let's see what they have on SEO. You can write about SEO companies in the news, right? Right. There's also the other sites I check on a daily basis are Business Wire. And this one I have just like I have certain keywords I search for, like hiring or employers, and that's how I find content in my space. So again, I literally check this. Probably the first thing I do every day is check the press release wires. I want to see what news is out there, because if there's any kind of acquisitions, I cover that stuff. But this is how I kind of stay on top of the industry, essentially, is through press releases and other stuff. But there's also this one here, Globe Newswire. I check that religiously. And then also PR Web. I got some of those bookmarked here, all by keywords, essentially. They have some categories as well. But so, yeah, I just click these every morning, have my coffee and see what's new, see what content I can reuse, and off I go. So, if you do any guest posting out there, invite your audience to guest post for you on your blog. That's another way I've gotten content before. If there's a job seeker out there who wants to showcase their skills, maybe you want to feature them in a blog post, again, do a Q&A with them, like I did with Devin. Do a Q&A with them about their job. What's it like to do your job on a daily basis? Send them 3 or 4 questions like that. Highlight them, tag them on social media. Content to me is easy to do but it takes effort, guys, right? You don't have to be a great writer, but you have to know how to write, if that makes sense. And leverage things like AI. You can have AI take something you wrote, have it rewrite it, right? It'll make it sound better. So to me now, with generative AI, there's no excuse for you guys to be content machines. And if you're a new job board, you need to be a content machine, right? You need to make a name for yourself, because you have zero traffic when you're starting from scratch. One of the ways you do that is through content, and a lot of it. So at a minimum, you should be doing 2 blog posts a week on your space. Ideally, once a day, but at a minimum, twice a week. That's 8 times a month. You should be doing that for your niche, right? It also shows potential, audiences that you exist, you're active. What you don't want to do, what I never want to see is a blog on a job board that hasn't been blogged on in like a year or 2. That's like a death sign for me. Like, okay, these guys gave up. They're not doing well or whatever. So don't burn yourself out, but pace yourself, right? Come up with a content schedule. There are things you can do, like the executive changes, right? That's easy content you can have. I don't have to think about that stuff. I just collect the information and bang out that post at the end of the month. All right. A roundup of a curated, PR press releases is easy to do. It's kind of mindless, just content creation, but it will help you. Not always for SEO, but just for content, for your niche, for keeping people informed, up to date, and it'll help with clicks as well. So that's why you do content like this. And Sarah is a master at content. I think she has a press release out. I'm gonna ask her about this as well. This came out today, actually, so good timing on her part. And FlexJobs is probably one of the, I'd have to say they're the number one content machine in the space, in my opinion. So, but we'll talk more about it with Sarah with that later on. But all right, any questions on content as we start to wrap things up here and get to Nick call here?
There's a question from Adam. Would you agree that partnering with job aggregation companies like Asuna is another good way to add free content?
Yeah, if you can get job content as well, I should mention that too. But the more job content you have on your site, the better. That's the general rule of thumb there. So I always encourage my clients to backfill with a partner. We'll give them the full job listing. I know on Smart Job Board, actually, Azuna is part of that. Well, actually, you can push your jobs to Azuna, which is a great feature there. But you always want to leverage with employee diversity. We brought in eQuest, and they gave us 25,000 jobs essentially overnight. And that just really helped to boost the number of job profiles we were getting and job alerts going out and things like that. So the more jobs you have, the better. And so the more you can get, the better. So look out, seek out. They're on my site on Job Board Secrets. I've written about a number of different backfill providers out there. SourceStack, Aspen Tech, JobGate, just to name a few, eQuest. And so go out and find those, partner with them. You can get paid for those clicks too in some cases, right? You can earn money on those clicks, 10, 15, 25 cents. So you might as well get paid if you're going to backfill too as well.
There's one more from Ryan. What are your thoughts about using a YouTube channel for content?
I think it's great if you can do it. I think that if you're a new job board, you have to think about, okay, what channels do I want to start with? Because if you don't want to start 20 different channels on, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, everything at once, right? You want to start out slowly and build yourself up. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn are kind of the easy ones to do. And you can automate through social media tools in terms of posting stuff to there with your job content through RSS feeds and your blog content. And I do that with all my clients. You get a tool like Deliverit or Buffer app or some of those. You take your RSS feed you get from the job board software, just push your jobs to those to those channels on a regular basis. And that helps to augment your any kind of human activity you want to do on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. But if you can do any kind of, I've had a couple clients in the past. I had a podcast. I had a guy out in, I think he was in Northwest Arkansas, and he had a podcast about Northwest Arkansas business, and he was starting a job board, but he already had that podcast as a channel he could leverage to promote the job board. And that was a great starting point for him. Right. So if you can do something like that, it's always a great thing to have a podcast or YouTube channel or TikTok page, whatever it is. Maybe TikTok is easier because it's only short content, but yeah, the more if you can do that, do it. If you're not comfortable with it yet, just start with the basics: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, before you get into any kind of video or podcasting stuff. So keep that in mind. Is that Ryan Brobden from Stanford City Jobs? By the way, Ryan, I got your t-shirts. Thank you very much in the mail. Appreciate that. All right. How are we doing on time? 2:01. And anything else I want to talk about content? Am I talking too fast, guys? Let me know. I do have a tendency to talk a lot or talk
You have
fast.
time for one more question
Yeah.
from Andre. What do you think about having a Facebook group for your job board?
Great question. I love it actually, because Facebook groups are, well, first of all, go out and leverage Facebook groups as part of your marketing, number one. So there are literally thousands of local and industry related employment groups on Facebook today with 5, 10, 20, 25,000 people in there. And those are mini job boards inside of Facebook. And if you're not joining those and putting your jobs in there, you're not getting free traffic, number one. So leverage the existing ones that are out there. I've heard a couple clients, they've actually on the down low, you can't do it you can't do it regularly, but you can buy, a couple of people I know have bought groups in their niche, and that's essentially free traffic sources. But if you, so start a job board, start a group on Facebook, but you got to promote it, right? You got to get people joining that thing quickly. So if you can start promoting it on the job board itself and in your own social medias, drive traffic to it. And eventually over time, it can be a great source of traffic for you guys, right? If it has 1,000 or more people in there, you can get pretty good visibility on any links you post in there. So if you don't have a job group on there, join ones that already exist, participate in those groups, post the job of the day in there, and you'll get free traffic guaranteed. All right. Your purpose content too. One other note I'll mention on content, like I'll go and take somebody's video content or even like a podcast, and I'll transcribe it on my own using like a rev.com, for example, which has a machine to do it. And I've either grabbed quotes out of that stuff, or I basically took that person's video, I blogged about it, and I basically cut and paste the transcript. And that's great SEO content, something like that. They did not do the in their, in some cases they won't do their own transcripts, but I'll do it for them, and I'll feature their video on my blog post, and I'll use the transcript for the kind of the SEO content piece of it too. So transcribing stuff is also good. See, there's another question here. Do you think that there is a generational difference in terms of consuming job content on different social channels? I've wondered if Facebook groups will continue to be relevant for the newer generations. So lately, I don't know. I have a couple of groups on Facebook now for one actually for my Rec Techie group. It seems lately the visibility I'm getting on posts hasn't been as good as it was a year ago. So first of all, anything with Facebook, take it with a grain of salt. They could take it away tomorrow. You never know. I mean, I started a company called Career Cloud based on the back of Facebook's open API back in 2012, only to have that whole business shut down because they essentially closed the API access on us. So Facebook is constantly changing stuff, and you can't guarantee it's always going to be there. Is the point. Right now, it's still viable. There's still a lot of great groups out there for any kind of niche, whatever it is. My answer is yes. I think it's going to still be relevant for the new generations. But 5 years, 3 years from now, 2 years from now, I might have a different answer for you. So, does anybody on the call have a Facebook group for the job board? I'd be curious to see. Put it in the chat there if you do. All right. Let me look at some of the comments here before we get to Nick. Herb says, Facebook group Road Dog Jobs for job board has 175,000 followers. Wow, that's awesome. Only challenge is quality traffic can be hit or miss. That's amazing, Herb. That's a pretty big group. What does the average job posting on your group get? Like in terms of clicks, you must get a couple hundred clicks at least on something like that. I'd be curious what the visibility is because it shows you the how many people saw this analytic, I think, on each one. Trusted Her says that they have 200 plus local groups, over 800,000 members. Wow, that's a lot, Brian. I'm not sure if a Facebook group is better than a Facebook page. A group is better than a page because, excuse me, a page does not get as much visibility in the feed as does a group. Yes. So if you don't want to start a page, just start a group. Fred said he maintains a Facebook group that serves 100,000 travel nurses. It's part of an overall online community of offering nurse staffing. Awesome. Yeah, there's some massive groups on Facebook. I mean, it's crazy. And like at one point I belonged to, 200 plus different local job search groups when I was posting a lot of jobs back in the day. And that was part of my strategy. Like I joined all these groups and I would go on there, and whenever I had a job I needed some traffic on, I'd go and find that local city and I post it in there and I get some clicks. It can be the traffic on Facebook can be a little strange sometimes, but I think it depends on what niche you're in. I've heard it's great for nurses, probably truckers, blue collar stuff. I would go and try and find a doctor on there or something like that. But there you go. Brian Fox says each job gets about 2 to 3% of eyes. More likes, reactions will drive more views. Top views usually hit around 70%. That's cool. You can pin a post to a group and help generate a lot. That's awesome. Yeah, great idea, Herb. You can do that. Very cool. All right, let's move on to Nick and get his session going here. Yeah, I'm going to pull up SEOjobs.com. Nick, how are you?
Ooh,
First of all, you have a great looking site, by the way.
thank you.
It's a WordPress site, I believe, right?
It is. It's all custom, so it's great for flexibility, bad for cost of getting anything done to it.
That is the peril of WordPress job board themes. Is there a theme you're running on there, or is it just is it really custom?
Everything is custom. So I'll tell you a little bit of the backstory, but I had a co-owner originally, and he had a relationship with a developer and kind of just mapped out the vision, got it to the space where I had joined, and then I had taken it to what you're seeing today.
Okay, and when was that?
Yeah, so let's just kind of jump right into the story. So some of you may be familiar with Peter Askew. He, owns a couple of job boards, but helped.
Ranchwork.com, yeah.
Yes, ranchwork.com and
Mhm.
also Vidalia Onions and onions.com. And overall, one of his keys to fame is he likes to buy some amazing domains
Mhm.
and build real businesses on them. Some of them being job boards, some of them being other projects. My backstory is I am an SEO consultant of 15 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan, Peter is awesome. I love saying him jokes about that too. I got 3 kids myself. But yeah, so I've been an SEO for about 15 years now, and the last 5 years being freelance SEO consultant. And it was actually Peter that
Mhm.
reached out to me. I have a separate email newsletter, so I'll probably be touching on a lot of things that Chris, talks about called the SEO for lunch. It just sends you once a week an email that kind of digests everything that's going on in the SEO world into one email that you can read for 20 minutes. And Peter actually reached out and just said, "Hey, I want to sponsor it. I'm starting this SEO jobs board. I also think SEO is cool." And we kind of just started kicking off. And long story short, it turned into me buying into 50% of the website. And then about 6 months later, he had an opportunity to buy one of his old projects that he kind of wished he never had sold. And I agreed to buy him out fully of SEOjobs.com. So Peter and I are absolutely on great terms, but he just has some other passion projects. But SEOjobs.com is a passion project for me. And I'll just say real quick for 2 reasons. One, I absolutely love the domain. So what I don't think Chris has talked about yet, which maybe Sarah will talk about, but half of my traffic, so I got 120,000 sessions last year to this site.
Mhm.
56% of it was direct type in. So
Wow.
despite being SEO first, when you have a premium domain like SEO jobs, nursing jobs, attorney jobs, there's still a lot of people that go right up into that little bar and type in the .com and see what's there. So if you have,
Valuable real estate. Yeah, valuable real estate there.
yeah, and it wasn't a cheap domain, I'm not gonna lie, but it to me it's the only reason I was interested in starting this job board. So I
Nice.
know, Chris, I kind of just like jumping through some of these questions, just kind of curious where you
No, it's
want to
okay. I
start.
think we're gonna have a pretty lengthy discussion anyway. But
Yeah.
all right. So you get about 10,000 monthly visitors, if I got that right.
Yeah. So at this point, it's about 10,000.
Okay. And what's your let's go to the pricing page. Let me see your pricing. Walk me through how much it costs here.
Yeah. So if you go to post a job at the top, yep, right there.
Yep.
So I do things a little bit interesting. So I don't necessarily sell them in packages. I have a free listing, which is kind of like a dangle, a carrot. You'll notice right underneath the zero, it's 1 per 6 months. So a lot of times what I will do is people will submit a free listing a second time. And then what I will do is just basically tell them, sorry, you can't be published, but here's the coupon to get the platinum listing for. I actually do 50% off because it doesn't cost me anything to publish a post.
Yeah.
So I just use it to kind of dangle the carrot and let people, test it out. And then silver is just kind of your entry level. It gets you on the site for 60 days. And then platinum is 120 days with all sorts of visibility through the homepage, the custom newsletter just for SEO jobs. And then you'll see about halfway down my SEO specific newsletter that has 7,500 subscribers. You get some visibility.
Nice. I need to join that actually. Let me do that right now.
Awesome.
get in there. I want to, okay, so stop 1 second. So, oops. Um, your pricing is very unique because it looks like, this niche, it's really only one job at a time, right? You don't need to have packages, I would assume, right? So that's probably why you
Exactly.
have it like that.
A lot of people are hiring one, maybe two SEOs at a
Yeah.
time. You know,
There's no reason to have a package.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not, an HR team that needs, 20 people on the floor. It's like an agency that needs to backfill one person or, a company
Mm.
in-house that needs, a new analyst or intern from school.
Yep. Okay. I like how you got but this is a great tactic too, right here, having the credit card, icons on there. Um,
And then these are all just happy
testimonials.
customers
Yep.
here. So anyone who buys one and then sends me ultimately an email that says, take this off, I filled it. And it gives me a great opportunity just to say, hey, how did SEO jobs play a role in it? And if they say, we loved it, then I ask them for a testimonial. And I will say that's like one of the keys, Chris. I don't know if you do this or not, but I always tell people like don't be afraid to ask for like a testimonial or feedback
Mhm.
because most people aren't going to lie and give you one if they don't mean it.
Yep.
But they're never going to, or very rarely are they going to give you one just out of the kindness of their hearts. So as you can see, I'm just kind of collecting them at the bottom of the page as like another trust signal.
Yep. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. That's another great tactic there, Nick, is testimonials. I forgot to mention that stuff. Um, but very cool. Very cool.
So, and
Um,
then there's actually a second way I monetize, and I just launched it this week. If you
this
go,
there.
yep, so now I'm doing both ends of it. So before it was strictly post jobs wanted, and I built a lot of like clout and opportunity and relationships with people in the industry. And people were very excited because similar to the other tech industry, there's been a lot of SEO layoffs that have been
Hmm.
going on. So a lot of people are coming to my site, getting visibility and sharing it just for the sheer opportunity.
Yeah.
Because I
Well,
think there's one thing, and Chris, I'm sure you could go on and on before, on this too, but with SEO jobs specifically, Indeed, and these really, really big job, giants, they just have a really, really horrible experience for us, very niche, jobs. So like when you type in SEO into like ZipRecruiter or Indeed or LinkedIn, and I'm not trying to pick on people, but what you find is Java developer with a bullet point that says, nice to have SEO skills.
yeah. I don't get me started on, you know, part of my language, but fuck indeed. Uh,
Yeah.
I
No, I'm all for it, but that's also part of it. It's like I'm not trying to be everything to anyone. I'm trying to be, you know,
yeah.
a great resource to, and in the SEO space, we don't talk about employment that much as an industry. So
Yeah.
this is a great plugin.
I think that Google is doing a huge disservice to seekers the way they do job SEO because to me, Indeed does not deserve all that SEO they get anymore. Uh,
Exactly.
and they bought Simply Hired. Simply Hired still ranks today right below Indeed. Why is that? It's the same jobs that are on Indeed, and to me, it's ridiculous that Google's actually keeping that site alive.
And so I'll give
But
you some of the hacks that Chris, you know already, but there's some ways that Google take it the way and gives a
yeah.
little
All
bit.
right, before you get there, Brian, I want to touch on this applicant stuff a little bit more first. Um, so first of all, would you say most of these jobs are remote jobs for SEO?
Yeah, so I am focusing almost exclusively on remote.
Yeah. And that's the perfect, to me, that's like the perfect job board to have if that job can be remote, because you can do a lot around monetization and, even have like, I've seen some job boards with remote listings that just are basically not a job board, they're an email list, right? So
Mhm.
it gives you much more flexibility in terms of marketing, I think, and stuff like that with these remote jobs. It also allows you to get more traffic too, because remote jobs are the number one type of job people want today, and they get like
So-
10x more applies than anything else. So that's you have a nice built-in, marketing piece there.
And
For
in complete
listings.
transparency, Chris, I mean, I considerably, and compared to Indeed or these big sites where they've got millions of visitors coming, I've got a couple hundred per day, and I can never guarantee that it's going to be from Atlanta, Georgia. So
Mhm.
when I do have customers that come in and post and they demand that it's hybrid or in person,
Yep.
they actually don't, it doesn't perform as well.
Exactly.
Because despite getting 10,000 visitors, which kind of feels like a lot, I bet you there's 7 of them from Minneapolis, Minnesota. You know, whereas remote, it's like now you're tapping into legitimately 10,000, and those are the people that absolutely love the site.
Exactly. And these are what they look like here. And if you go back to what was the pricing again?
Yeah, sorry. So there's 2 parts. So for a job wanted, so I literally just published this on Monday. So this is
Okay.
the other end of the spectrum. So you have, we're looking for applicants, so a traditional job listing. But what I do, and I'm sure everybody in their vertical sees this, we log into LinkedIn, and what do we see? We see something that goes along the lines of, unfortunately, I've been let go today. Thanks to X job for the opportunity. And it seems to be especially strong in the SEO sphere right now. So what I wanted to do was build a job wanted, basically an index of all SEO consultants, SEO content writers, and give them an opportunity to build a platform for themselves.
Exactly. Hey, Martin, if I were to tell you do one thing today, is add a feature like job wanted to the platform. I've been after that for years from all the software vendors. No one's taken me up on it yet. I mean, Smart Job Board has be able to do a feature listing, but I love this model. I think this is part of the future of job boards, in my opinion, Nick. So how's it be? So you just launched it. So have you sold some already?
So I have 4 platinum. Interesting enough, so I very, very intentionally. So hold on, let me take one step back just because I think
Yep.
it'll give you guys a little bit of context to my passion for this site. So I'm very vocal about the fact that I have lost my job twice in my career, and I've had to go home, tell my wife, and kind of explain to the kids, why we're not getting the extra ice cream and why dad's stressed out getting a job. And then I've had to run to the Indeeds and the LinkedIn's and go through all that. So, with all that said, all those emotions are very fresh, despite that being like 5 years ago. So, I
Mhm.
very intentionally wanted to create this section and then make it about as close to free as I humanly can. And the only reason it's not $0 is because I don't want to get spammed to death, which I know
Right.
people will.
Mm.
So the people that are signing up for it want this premium visibility, and it's worth $20 to them, $25.
Yeah.
And to
And
me, it takes 10 seconds to publish it and look at this content. And what I like about it is not
it's also
everybody,
great for your SEO content too. If someone's
exactly,
searching Susie Baucus, they're going to find this listing.
exactly. And she writes all the content on the bottom. We literally have it set up so each of those headers is a bucket. So it's like, write it all down. Tell us your story. And then there's an opportunity, people, and then, some HR people, it's like they want to get all the resumes sent to them. A lot of people in the SEO space, they know what they want from their applicant. So this is their opportunity to save $90 or whatever it takes, so I might cost myself money at some point in time, but I am a big proponent of kind of helping the industry and doing what's right. And I feel very confident that it's going to come full back or full circle.
This is great, man. I love this. Um, yep. Um, I want to buy the main jobswanted.com or something and
Yeah.
do this, but story for a
But
different day.
one thing I will say, Chris, you had mentioned about newsletter. One
Mhm.
thing, it's super annoying. All of us, if we were in the same room, we would raise our hand and say that we hate pop-ups. But Chris, if you've probably been to my site and already exit out of it, but if you just go up to the navigation and click on newsletter, so you're going to get this pop-up. But
Yeah.
what I have for the first time anybody comes to the site and tries to exit off of the site, this
Hmm.
pops up. And despite all of us hating pop-ups,
That
I have a
works.
conversion rate of like 4%. Like it's absolutely insane. It doesn't seem like that's a high number for an opt-in.
No, on exit is a great way to do it, I think. You know?
Right. So, and it's like I'm now averaging about 70 new subscribers per week right now. Whereas before it used to be like 10 to 25 just super passively.
Nice. How big is your list?
I'm at 2,000 subscribers right now.
Not bad. Not bad.
Yeah, and I would say a lot of people will know this too.
What's your open rate too, by the way?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Do you know your open rate?
Yeah, 50%.
That's amazing. Yep.
Yeah, and my click rate is like close to 10%.
Wow, that's awesome.
So,
That's an
but
engaged newsletter audience right there.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that typically when you have people that are in the technical space, getting their email address is harder than their social security number.
Yeah, I'll
Like
bet.
they're just not willing to give it. But to your point, Chris, I have a little booklet that scrapes like the jobs on my homepage, and then I paste the HTML in, and then the email goes out once a week. It takes me 5 minutes to send the email.
That's awesome. All right, now let's talk about SEO.
Yes, let's do it.
So
That's
first of all, how long has the domain been live? Do you know?
Yeah, so SEOjobs.com has existed in various means, throughout the years. So it's a 10 plus year domain. And then it kind of ebb and flowed, but I'll just call it 10 years for the sake of being live. But in the sense of how Peter started and I took it over, it's a little bit over 2 years.
Okay.
And I would say
So
it's
I imagine
always
I imagine it had some backlinks already though when you bought it, right?
It does. So being that it's always been owned by kind of either a domainer or an SEO, there's quite a bit of control backlinks to it. But the good news is, and this is one thing that I think you may share with a lot of your audience as well, is a job board can be viewed as a value-based product to a lot of people in your industry. So they don't necessarily look at you as you're selling something, but you're helping your industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I get a lot of backlinks from the SEO industry because they're basically like, look at Nick, he's helping all these poor people that lost their job find new jobs, and they're helping these companies struggling to find real quality SEOs. So this is the easiest site to get backlinks from.
Mm-hmm.
I can even go to, EDUs, college websites that have job boards and say, I have an entire section for intern and open or, and a first year positions if you'd like to link to it, and they often do.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So all right, how do you approach your SEO today? I mean, to me, and you tell me your thoughts on this, but to me, a job board SEO is about content. You got to have job content. You got to create niche related content. You got to get backlinks.
Yep.
You got to kind of rinse and repeat there. So, how do you differ from that, if at all? And could you tell me on a high level how you approach SEO for your job board?
Yeah. So what's really interesting is I do SEO for large enterprise level companies that aren't job boards all day long. I probably do the least amount of actual SEO to this site. It kind of happens naturally, meaning the words that I care about most are ranking for SEO jobs, which is obviously my domain, remote SEO jobs, and then some variations. And then Chris, as you had mentioned, through content in the various blog. So I used to rank number 3. We'll talk about this too, but
Oh, look, there's a flex job.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Where do you come up?
Number 3.
3. Okay. Yeah. Not bad.
Yeah. So basically,
Why is Indeed here twice? That's ridiculous. Come on, Google.
Yep.
Jesus
So
Christ.
that all just goes back into Google preferences, But what's interesting is a lot of people think that you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
competitive with these big. Look who I'm actually outranking though. Like I'm outranking LinkedIn,
Yep.
like Glassdoor, even Indeed's third listing. But it just shows that when you niche down, like there's an opportunity.
Yep.
Nick, there was one more question by Christine about your paywall for candidates, I believe. So besides having a paywall to be featured, do you plan on implementing any other vetting process to make sure you are featuring quality SEOers? If so, can you talk to that?
Yeah, so I don't know if this is answering the question perfectly, but if you go back to the homepage real quick, so you scroll down, I have featured job listings and then there's featured applicants. If Chris refreshes this page, it should automatically re-update. Maybe that. What browser are you on, Chris?
Chrome.
Yeah, it should. What if you do a hard refresh? If you just do control like F5,
Yeah.
the featured applicants is supposed to actually rotate. So, like I said, this is a brand new feature that may not be working the perfect way, but it basically takes anybody who paid for a featured applicant position on the SEOs for hire and rotates them through on this featured applicant section. And then in addition to that, there's the SEO for hire which will have a featured list, which is larger than 3. And then in my email list, what I'm planning on doing is highlighting 1 or 2 featured applicants that pay for the premium listing. So that way they get some specific, attention on their particular listing.
Gotcha. All right. So,
Hmm.
so if you were starting a job board today, Nick, let's say you're starting from scratch.
Yeah.
What are the first couple things you do around SEO? Give me a sense of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we scroll up to the top, like you said, at the very top of the browser, we have what's called the title tag. So if you hover over the tab that says SEOjobs.com, sorry, the actual tab itself, nope, up in your actual browser, like how if you switch tabs.
Oh, the browser, sorry, the tab.
Yeah, sorry. So there's the browser title tag. You'll notice similar to yours, Chris. Mine says SEOjobs.com.
Find your next
next
role.
SEO role
Yep.
today. This is the actual text that when you go into Google and you search, you know how there's the blue link? This is the actual text that displays there. So this is probably one of your strongest signals to Google that what your page is about. For me, I'm obviously focusing on the terms SEO jobs or SEO role. Then, as Chris had also said, the very first thing I say is niche job boards for SEOs. So the one thing that's nice is 5 or 10 years ago, Google wasn't smart and you had to use the exact same terms of like SEO jobs. Now they understand synonyms and antonyms and are very smart. So if I say a niche job board for SEOs, they know that's SEO jobs. And then you can see there's other things that I don't think Chris had mentioned. There are what's called header tags. So the structure of a niche job board for SEOs is in what's called an H1.
This right here, right?
Yep. So that's like an H1 tag. So you're basically telling Google this is the strongest, SEO element of the page. And then if you go back up to the browser, you'll see that value is also what the title value is.
Yes. They have to match. Yep.
Exactly. So then they match. Now, let's talk real quick about 2 different things that I'll call the advanced SEO thing that most people on job boards are not doing.
Okay.
So as Chris had shown you in the search results, if we type in SEO jobs into Google, we get this gross block of job posts that basically won't let you outside of Google. Do you mind real quick, Chris, doing a search? So we just type in SEO jobs. So right here, this is like the job widget. So there's 2 things that we can do to get our listings in here, but just to show how difficult it is and how much Google wants us to stay on their property, if we click on that first listing or any of them, we click on this one, the full job listing is going to be right here, but the only time that you'll end up going to the actual job board is if you go to the top and then it says apply on Jubal.
Yeah.
Job.
And this counts as a click inside of the search console, which is annoying.
Exactly. And it's multiple impressions too.
Yeah.
So that's the only way to get, but here's the thing that's crazy. To be able to get listed into this.
Is there a way to how do you get listed on this first box here? Is there a way? There is.
So there is. So basically there is what is called schema markup. And what this is it's very specific code that basically all search engines, your Google, your Yahoo, your Bing, have agreed to, they just agreed to common language. So they all honor it. And you do this schema markup for each job listing, and it feeds each one of these positions into this box. And if you don't mark it up via the schema markup, it's very, very unlikely that your job will show up in here. It does happen, but it's a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I mean it's the Google for Jobs integration.
Yep.
You need to.
So that's a whole nother thing right there too. So to get in front of what Chris is saying, and apologize for hijacking Chris, is
no problem.
I
was curious though if you actually knew a way to. These are 3 jobs here. I'm assuming these are maybe the latest jobs 2 days ago. I don't know.
Yeah, this is always updated.
I actually had a job in here once. It was a remote HR job when I ran a remote job board. And that thing got it went viral on Google Jobs somehow. and I think it was the first listing in this box right here,
Mm-hmm.
and it stayed there for days. And I got that Search Console report, and it said I had like thousands of clicks on my job. And yeah, it all happened. This is the click they were talking about. Like I got a
Right.
tiny fraction of that actually came to my site
Right.
once they clicked on apply here.
So that's why I actually like looking at, if you go into your Google Analytics, assuming you're using GA4,
Mhm.
it'll actually come up separate than a regular organic. It'll be called like a Google Apply. And that's how they track the actual clicks on those blue buttons right there. Because
Yep.
for many of these listings, you're going to see like 5 or 6 companies because they recognize it's the exact same content.
Are you getting decent traffic from Google for Jobs? How many jobs do you have too, by the way?
I don't have a whole lot, so it's like
No.
100 to 200 job listings at any point in time.
Okay, you're probably just getting a tiny fraction.
I just get a tiny
percent.
fraction. Like I said, I'm very fortunate that it's really weird because as an SEO myself, SEO is not my top priority. Because the one thing that we have to remember, Chris, what you had just said, if you happen to hit that top #1 listing, all jobs expire at some point in time.
Mhm.
And then you lose that listing. So none of this content, unlike your blog content, stays on the site forever. So that's why I like to automate as much SEO on those pages as possible. But the one thing that I do want to talk about is there is the SEO jobs, I'm sorry, Google Jobs API.
Yeah.
And what it is it allows you to take all your jobs on your site, and it's a feed that you send directly to Google to purposely index. And what I mean by index is it tells Google to allow it to come into its search results. And then you can send them a second feed to say, these job posts have expired, please remove them. And what that does is it goes around the normal process of Google coming to your site, discovering your content, and then making a decision on whether it's good enough. It's almost the cheat code for always getting your content in the index.
Yep.
And Chris, we're getting a couple of questions.
Oh yeah, let me see
over
here.
here.
I got them here.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me start with the bottom one here. What's the best way to contract with backfillers to gain? I think any question for Nick here. So, a stat to Nick's point: only 30%, 39% of on ATS job posts have properly formatted LD JSON schemas. Okay, that's interesting. That's Alec from SourceStack. Hey, Alec. Interesting. Most job board software today come with the schema set. So, Martin, I assume Java Code does too, right? So, anonymous question: what's the best way to contract with backfillers to gain CPC revenue? Like Jobgate.com, JOBG8. You can do that. Like any of the programmatic players, like Appcast. You can basically become a partner of theirs. They'll generate a feed for you, create a dashboard. You log in, you send them traffic, they'll send you money. That's the short answer there. And
Yeah, and I saw a comment somebody had mentioned about the indexing API paying for this, and I just want to put it into the chat. So this is the actual developer's requirements. So if you are fortunate enough to have somebody who is working on the back end or a developer, send them this, and this will give them basically all the links to all the dorkiness that you need to know to basically integrate it.
Yeah, jobs.google.com. That's where you go if you want that stuff. There's a question from Christian Smith. I don't understand this question either, but if anybody knows, chime in here. Have you had clients request site accessibility reports such as VPATs, voluntary product accessibility templates? We work with a lot of higher ed, and this has become a recent ask. I've never heard of that, so I can't answer that. Anybody else have an answer to that? Throw it in the chat if you do.
So I've worked with a couple bigger boards, like job.com was running for a little while, and then Diversity Jobs. And if I'm understanding correctly, the accessibility is, just making sure that your site is meeting all the standards for people with various challenges, and that is a very high standard to meet.
Gotcha. By the way, Adam says that Adzuna also has CPC content, so check them out at adzuna.com, or reach out to Adam Berkowitz there on the chat as well.
Yeah, PII is a huge thing too.
Featured applicants, featured job seekers. Is there any risk of this feature being abused by irrelevant job seekers being featured and diminishing the job requirement? I don't think so. I mean, you got to hand over your money, your credit card to do this. So That basically filters out the spam. I will tell you that where the spam comes in, and I'm dealing with this now on a couple sites, is just spammers going and creating account profiles for both seekers or employers, and putting backlinks on the description of their company profiles, things like that. I have
Yeah.
to go in there constantly and delete those employers. So if they're coming in from if they're an employer, if they're signing up with a Gmail address, 9 times out of 10, it's a spammer.
Mhm.
So keep that in mind. But seeker wise, I don't think you're going to run into that with any kind of feature resume stuff because you got to pay to do that. I did have some experiences years ago where people with stolen credit cards were posting stuff,
Mhm.
posting jobs stuff. I don't know why. I guess just collect the resumes and personal information from people. But yeah, there's always a risk out there, but you just got to stay on top of it, I guess.
So, Chris, one thing I will share with the audience, and I actually get quite a bit of flack from it, is because my job board is mostly focused on remote positions,
Mhm.
but they're looking to hire remotely within the US, the UK, or Canada. A lot of individuals from India or Pakistan will not read that or they won't care. So they'll spam all of them. So what I have is actually if you try to visit my site from an India IP,
Yep.
I get a big pop-up that says this site is not available to you.
I love that. I wish I actually had every job board software have that because I would love to filter out certain countries.
Yep,
No offense, but look, you're not going to get hired here if the jobs are in the US and you live in, somewhere in Asia or whatever. That's not going to
exactly.
happen.
Well,
So I don't
and
want
that's
that.
where it kind of goes back to because Chris probably knows better than any of us. Like, if you use like a LinkedIn and they have the easy apply, the amount of people I talk to that put an SEO job and they have 1,000 applicants within an hour,
Yeah.
is insane. I get emails that say, I got 8 applicants from your site, 7 of them were hireable.
Yeah.
If I had the budget and the need, I could hire 7 out of 8 of them.
By the way,
So
how do you do that, Nick? How do you create that pop up and detect countries? Is there a plugin, a good WordPress plugin you can recommend, or?
So I actually, again, it's custom coded. So I literally just paid my developer. So it's a JavaScript. It's actually like a modal, so very similar to how that newsletter pop-up works.
Yep.
What it is it's the very first thing the website checks, but it does a full page pop-up that you can't exit out of.
That's interesting. Martin says geo-blocking and control is available on Java Go. That's good to know. Yeah,
Yeah,
can't you do it on Cloudflare too at some point?
that's my understanding.
Yeah.
Like I said, it goes a little bit outside of my technical knowledge, but that's why it's great to have smart people that you can
Cloudflare do it. Yeah.
pay to do it.
Yeah.
But I
Just
will say it's really helped the quality of my
yeah.
like significantly.
I think every job board software needs to have some kind of geo blocking on there. It's another big ask of me when it comes to new features out there. It's just there's a lot of spam out there from other countries.
Chris, one thing I want to show you real quick. I actually took it out of the navigation because I am one of those people that failed to keep up with it. But if you do .com/community,
Slash community.
yep, this is my attempt at blogging. So I did the 2.0 launch, but if you go down, I did one unique blog post, but then I did an interview series.
Oh,
So what
there
I
you
did
go.
is I took each individual, these are all people in my network that I know, and I basically asked them the same thing, like, there's mine. And it was like 5 questions, like, how did you get into SEO? What's your favorite part? Like, what was like the one thing that I always enjoyed was asking people, what's your starting salary? Because everybody's willing to say I made 15 bucks an hour and we don't have to talk about it, but it's just kind of fun, like reminiscing about your
Yeah,
career.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Here's by the way, you could like make this part of the feature of the job wanted for an extra fee, like be featured on our blog.
Exactly.
That's a great little product you could sell to them as well.
I like that idea a lot.
Yeah, totally.
And then, like you said, I actually so this I do for free. There's a tool called Buffer, and they have a plugin for WordPress that will automatically post your content
Hmm.
to various social media. So all my blog posts, all my help wanted, all my job listings get posted to both LinkedIn and Twitter automatically. I don't touch it. And it's like 3 times per day the
Yeah,
content goes live.
that's awesome. Any other tools you want to mention?
Right off the top of my bat, I think if you're using WordPress, the best SEO tools you can use just for kind of like an overarching SEO is either going to be called Rank Map or Yoast SEO.
Yoast, yeah.
So those are both free to an extent, but very much will give you what you need just kind of for out of the box SEO best practices.
Awesome. Well, Nick, this has been a great conversation. Any last questions from the audience for Nick? Frank Math, very good. That Ferdinand says. Got anything, any new plan for the site coming up, Nick, or what's next for the business?
Yeah, so like I said, I just launched V2, which was this job wanted aspect of it. And, I need to go back to what is my normal, probably 1 hour a day contribution versus my 10-hour day. So I think right now it's little bugs. Like I said, the things that are supposed to refresh, always trying to make sure I'm giving people as much visibility as possible. So, and also if there's one thing I've learned about from Peter Askew is like he is all about keep things as simple as possible. Don't overcomplicate it so that it takes you 10 hours a day to monitor it, or to maintain it. This site for me, it's about $1,000 a month. That is fairly passive. I make, an hour a day maybe at most.
Mhm.
And and it's just like I said, it's something that I've become passionate about, and I've been learning a ton about it. So I'm just kind of excited. Like I said, I'm fairly new to your guys' job board group, and it's just been a fun niche to play in itself.
Awesome. Well, appreciate your time today, Nick. Enjoy the rest of the show, and yeah, connect with Nick on the socials there. And yeah, have a great day, Nick. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, a couple of questions before we get to Sarah. Another question about featured applicants' profiles. Is there any risk of information violation in regard of GDPR laws? I don't think so. I mean, you're publicly acknowledging you're putting your information out there, I would think. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but Ferdinand, I've tried buying ngojobs.com for many years, but I don't know how to do it. Okay. And Nick, so hold on. So how do you buy a good domain? Any tips there?
Yeah, from my perspective, it's just, I mean, you kind of have to be annoying about it. There's people that kind of what they call it is like domain squatting. They buy it for whatever price they deem it to be worthwhile and they set a bar, or they simply won't sell it. So I didn't have that problem with SEO jobs, but there are other domains where I'll send them an email once every 6 months, just letting them know I'm interested, just until they start throwing you a number. But also, if you go to GoDaddy or any of the registrars, they do have services where basically they will do all that work to do whatever it takes to try to acquire it on your behalf, but no promise on what the dollar amount will be.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a kind of a personal preference. I like to believe that eventually when I sell this site, my domain will have a multiple value to it because it's not SEOjobX.com. It's going to be a premium domain on top of whatever, revenue I have to it. So
Yeah.
I think it's something just to consider within the purchase agreement.
Good. All right, now you can go. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, you bet.
All right. Yeah, any other tips? I mean, just be persistent, I guess. I've seen some domains too where they could actually lease it for a while, for a year, and then pay it off at some point. Just depends on the owner, I guess. But Cedo.com is another place you can go buy domains. But you have to be persistent, I think, with that, whoever owns that, and try and, send them one email a month till you get it, essentially. So, all right, here. Sheila says my 18 and 12-year-olds say Facebook is dead for old people. Okay. Yeah, I don't think my daughter uses that much. She's 21. Any advice for using WordPress or any other CMS? I'm not a huge fan of WordPress because you have to maintain it and it comes up pain versus the software like Javaco and Nice Board and Smart Job Board, where they take care of all the technical stuff and you just worry about sales and marketing. So it is a pain that, you have to have basically a developer on call essentially to help you with stuff with the WordPress site. So keep that in mind. And then understand structured data, go for jobs. I have implemented that in HTML job. But did I hear correctly? One can basically wrap Google via API. You can push your jobs through an API. Yes. You have to code that though, versus the traditional sitemap procedures. Check, jobs.google.com for how that works, but it's a little more advanced way to integrate with Google for Jobs. All right, here, Sarah. How are you?
Hey, Chris. Good to be here.
Good to see you again. So Sarah is from flexjobs.com. Let me pull up her site here. There it is. And how how's the new acquisition going? I guess let's start there with how's it been? It's been what, like maybe a month now or something, 2 months?
No, it's actually been a year.
Oh,
So
oh, okay.
yeah, so we're
Oh, so
pretty.
you announced it later on before you actually,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. But yeah, no, it's going well. It's been an adventure,
Hmm.
as acquisitions always are. But it's been going really well, and we're really excited to be part of the Bold family.
Yeah, so for the audience, I've been a big admirer of Sarah and Flex Jobs over the years. Again, I think one of the most successful job boards in the space. One of the greatest content creators I've ever seen in the space, if not the. Um, and someone I think we can all learn from. So that's why I'm so glad to have her on today and have her take her time out to talk to us. So her site, if you don't know, was recently acquired by Bold.com, which is a company that has some other resume services, career advice services on the internet. And she finally did her exit here. She's still with the company though. But she's going to talk to us today about flex jobs and remote jobs and selling a little bit and that kind of stuff. So, Sarah, welcome. I guess let's see here. What's my first question for you? So, give me a sense of how big Flex Jobs is, if you can share any kind of traffic numbers or whatever. Give me a sense of how big the site is today for the audience, if you could.
Yeah, we're about 5.5 million visitors a month. And we're listed in the top 100 global job sites, which is great. Um, as a niche site focused on remote and flexible work, I'm happy to say we've had a growth trajectory over the years. And it's involved, as we've gotten into bunch SEO, a number of shifts with keywords and things like that. Way back when we started, it was telecommuting, was the primary keyword. Intentionally not work from home, because that was much more junky and scammy and low quality. And yeah, now into the remote and hybrid space. But
Nice. So you've kind of shifted your SEO phrases over the years then.
yeah, we shifted to some degree, and we also had kind of a diversified strategy. I also had launched, as I know you probably know about Chris, but we have another property, remote.co, that we launched in 2015, and that was actually right at the inflection point of when remote was kind of coming out as a keyword, and we didn't want to poach the traffic that was already coming from Flex Jobs for telecommuting, which was still dominant. But we wanted to be able to capture some of the remote job keywords. At the time, it actually was not a remote job site. It was a B2B site that was kind of around paying it forward from my perspective on. We had built our company from the beginning as a remote and flexible company, and we wanted to pay it forward to other companies that were interested in starting a remote company. Maybe they were brick and mortar now and wanted to switch, or just all of the tips and tricks. And actually, if you click on like the 35 questions in that main section,
Mm-hmm.
like why remote, yeah, you see like we've interviewed a lot of different companies over the years on
Wow.
like what do they do and why, and what are some of the biggest benefits, and what are the challenges you've had as well, and what platforms do you use, and things like that. So it's definitely a resource that was like kind of a pay it forward kind of love for other entrepreneurs and business owners trying to integrate remote and hybrid work. But now it has also spun into its own job board. And yeah, it does help us diversify
Yeah.
the keywords.
So you have two job boards now. So does one help the other, or are they basically two separate entities that you've kind of market separately
They
today?
help each other. Remote Co has long been, when we did finally add a job board section to it, we kept it as a free job board. So it's a very limited job board compared to Flex Jobs.
Gotcha.
But we do share some, free job postings on here. And then we do have an upsell that drives people back to Flex Jobs if they want more jobs and more information.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, the content on here is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, we really, we took a lot of deep pride in quality of content from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Really writing it. And I used to have arguments with my SEO consultant, and about, yes, I understand what you're saying for SEO, but it has to be UX first. It has to be about the customer first. And yeah, and we try to balance that, of course, and be strategic, but all told, I very much believe as much as you can
Yeah.
focusing on the customer first.
Nice. So explain to the audience what your business model is today on Flex Jobs, because you're one of the few companies in our space who have been able to charge job seekers for access to job listings, right? It's a kind of a rare success story
Yeah.
because job seekers don't pay for a lot out there. But
Yeah.
I want to talk about that move that you did. Talk about why job seekers will pay for something and kind of around that stuff.
Yeah, and given the audience, I'll also give some backstory that FlexJobs is my second company that I've started. The first one was actually called Job Direct, and it was back in '95. So to date myself, dropped out of college to start that. um,
You're older.
yeah,
You're older than I am in the space. You
yeah, I've
started in
been around a
99. You're
long, long
95.
time.
Wow.
Yeah. And at the time I was a college student looking for internships and entry-level jobs. And so were my friends. And this was back in the day, when you were still faxing job postings to colleges to get information. It was terrible, and the internet and databases were just coming up. And so we created the first entry-level online job site at the time. And with that, we had a very different model in that it was free for job seekers. We had 5 to 6 digit annual contracts with employers, and happily we were able to ride the wave of that mid 90s, and we did sell that to Korn Ferry right before the crash in 2001. So had a really interesting backstory, but I also, in terms of pricing models, I had that reference point. And so conceptually, I would love to make our site free for job seekers. And so that is how FlexJobs launched initially. And we did a pay per post model around work from home, remote telecommuting jobs. And what we found pretty quickly was different than the entry level market, where you have recruiters or recruiting teams dedicated to entry level hiring. You had conferences around entry level hiring. You have kind of like a pool to swim in to market. With work from home and telecommuting jobs back then, you literally had no pool whatsoever. So you're doing a lot of research trying to find the needles in the haystack and the people to contact and who's the hiring manager. And so we were doing that by finding people who are hiring, companies that were hiring, and then reaching out to them and saying, hey, do you want to pay? And kind of doing the sales in that way. So we're already doing the research on where the jobs were, and then trying to close that sale. So hard, really, really hard. On the flip side, what we're finding is that there's a lot of job seeker interest in having a job site that just specialized in remote, or like, I want to flip between the keywords because it's back then telecommuting jobs. But so that what was working was the job seekers coming. It was really hard getting employers to pay. And so about a year into the company, we had to kind of, really look at the revenue model wasn't working. What were we going to do? And kind of have that really honest assessment of leaning into what was working and leaning away from what wasn't. And that was scary because it meant flipping our model and trying to charge job seekers for a valuable service. And we did believe it was valuable because back then we were still doing the same thing we're doing now, which is screening every single job to ensure that it has some kind of remote or flexibility. That it is a professionally oriented job, so kind of more of a career path type of job, not a super transactional gig kind of one, and that it is not a scam, and that it was legitimate and with a professional company. And all of those things have kind of evolved over the years. Flexibility, for example, back then, that was anything outside of a traditional 9-to-5 job on site. It could be an on-site job that's part-time or flexible schedule or what have you. But it's now we still do have some of those jobs, but really primarily it's remote and hybrid.
Yeah. I like how you kind of show the search result and then you kind of hide the listing here to drive people to come and unlock those jobs. Very excellent.
Yeah.
You've done a great job at just that conversion process, right? How did that take a lot of tweaking initially, or did you kind of get it right away, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it definitely, I'd be lying if I said, and I've said in other interviews, it actually did work right away overall. I mean, the value prop was desirable from job seekers. And it was exciting to see when we did make that very scary switch what happened. And it was more of a successful business model. And I'll give one quick shout out to my board member who he's worked in a lot of different companies or with a lot of different companies. But he has since written a book called The Startup J Curve. And it's a great reference if anyone is starting a company or in those earlier stages when you're trying to find market fit and revenue fit. You go in with a product or idea, and then you often kind of experience like it's not working the way we thought. And kind of what that bottom is and where you're being really honest with yourself and then how to hopefully swing back up. So great book.
Yep. Do you think, to me, like when I look at a business like this that job seekers pay, you have to really find that job that they want, right? It has to be a very sought after listing that they can't always find, or they have a lot of trouble finding out there. So there was like a work in sports that did this, like major league jobs. Do you know, are there any other niches out there you think might be viable for a kind of a business model like this?
I think that I'm an entrepreneur of like pain points. Like both my first company, I was a job seeker. I was in that market feeling it. And then with Flex Jobs, I was honestly pregnant with my first child and looking for a job that allowed me flexibility. So I knew that there was a pain point of jobs that I knew were out there, but you couldn't find easily. And I think for niches, I can't speak to all the niches out there because I haven't been in those exact shoes. But I would say that solving a personal pain point and something that does not seem like there's a good solution out there for is a great starting point. I'm aware of, the latter, certainly, I think they started around early 2000s. Like that was another one with 100K plus jobs, Angle, that for many years was dedicated to that exact model as well.
They're free now though, right? Yeah.
They're different. I think they charge a little. For the last time I really looked at it, honestly, and spoke to Mark, it was they were doing a bit more focused on an application upsell. So that you kind of fill out a whole questionnaire and then they automatically send, I think it's like 70 questions. It's a long questionnaire and then they apply to jobs for you, something like that. They still have some angle around the 100K. Although they did lower to 40K at one point, and then at least according to the market stories. Another one I've heard, the only other one I really know of, and it's just because I have a friend who owned it, was a voiceover company, like so voiceover artists.
Yeah.
So that's another example of a really small like niche market that would, they have a lot of people interested in those jobs. Those jobs are hard to find and they're competitive. And then they're trying to provide. And I know there's one called voices.com as well. Interestingly, when I met this person who was running that site, he said that he had his top two sources of candidates were from SEO and were from us, from Flex Jobs, driving people to their job postings. So
yeah, I think it really depends on the type of seeker. I interviewed a guy who runs a company called Headhuntable. It's not a job board, but it leverages VAs. So and it's for tech job seekers. So the idea is to hire these VAs to work with the job seeker. They will go out and apply for you kind of exponentially, amplifying your reach as a seeker. And he charges for that, like on an hourly basis, I think, or something like that. But
I mean, the market's changed a lot.
Yeah.
It's something as simple as Apple and iPhones and SaaS, quick SaaS hits on all of these different devices, Netflix, all of it. These SaaS models that have become much more normalized than when we started, for sure. I mean, it was definitely, we were swimming upstream a ton. And to be honest, it was really difficult. I mean, I say it worked in a lot of ways, but we also, it was very, very difficult job seeker perspective. I mean, one of the number one things you say out there is don't pay for a job, right? So there's, a lot of the trust, earning trust was very important to us of job seekers. Having really good customer service. There's a lot of things that we took to heart that we know what this experience is like. And if we're going to kind of shift the model and offer really good service, we have to be darn good at what we do when 99.9% of our competition is free. Yep. So, and we lost a lot of people, I'm sure, just because of our model, like that, who weren't willing to give us a chance, even though we had a satisfaction guarantee, like all that kind of stuff. But we went to kind of great lengths to do it with as much integrity as possible.
I noticed on your join your call outs here, there's no pricing here. Why is that? And what is your pricing?
Yeah, our pricing is $295 for a 14-day trial, and then $71 for the year. And then on the employer side, we also do have an employer offering still, which is $199 a month, and then a 3-month and annual option too.
So
Um,
$3
yeah,
to try it out.
pardon?
You said 295
On the employer side, it's $199.
for the
Oh,
seeker.
295 on the job seeker side, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And quite honestly, the team's been doing testing. So we've tested lots of different things over the years of having pricing front and other elements. But
When do you show them the pricing after they sign up here?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
registration.
And you found that it works best in terms of just converting?
I cannot speak to kind of what, like, I am a little limited in what I can share from the broader company and team standpoint, since the acquisition, but historically, I would say that historically, we saw it in both ways. It depends on the audience and the source sometimes.
Yeah. It's always interesting in terms of how that conversion works, and
Mhm.
little tweaks can.
Yeah, I mean, I think testing in general is just really important. Sometimes, and we found this repeatedly, you're surprised at what you find. Some of the most common things about whether it's the number of offerings or the number of stripped out, fewer distractions on the page and et cetera. Things like that work in a traditional market don't always work for us because again, we're charging job seekers. We need to give them more information before they get to a point of sale. Because it's a little different if they expect to always pay and they know there's going to be a price, and then they're evaluating the price and how that compares against other competitors, and we don't have that situation as much. So,
all right, let's talk about your content strategy a bit, because I saw this today. Flex Job shares 20 remote scams and key tips for safe. I mean, I see probably like 3 or 4 of these a month, Sarah. You've been the most prolific. That's why I say you're one of the most prolific job boards ever when it comes to content creation like this. Let's see here. So what's your overarching, I mean, how much content do you produce on a monthly basis roughly? Do you have a rough idea there you could share?
I really can't actually right now. I think what I can say is that over the years, it has been, a diversified strategy, and we focus very much on different, I mean, we do different kinds of content, right? On site, we do articles and webinars and job seeker content supporting their experience. And then other types of contents are ones that you push out, the social content and press releases certainly. And we also push out webinars and stuff too. But when we started, it was really much slower. I mean, for something like a press release, it would maybe be back then, it was like maybe every other month, maybe monthly. And right now, kind of what the strategy is much more around, what are you trying to get out of it? Really being clear on like, why are you creating it? What kind of quality are you committed to? And how is it being used? And then, I've always balanced kind of some of the evergreen content, so long term, and then balance the short term, like what are the trends, making sure you're having information for trends. But there are two very big different buckets that way for job seekers. And obviously in an ecosystem of job search, like we want to have topics that are around job searching and finding jobs. And then we also want to have ones around, parallel stuff around resumes, cover letters, interview questions, negotiating strategies. We would target different audiences because we didn't have what different than SEO jobs where it's very vertical. We have intentionally from the beginning kind of had all jobs, entry level to executive, part-time, full-time, and essentially all career industries that allow for kind of like remote hybrid work, which are nowadays pretty much almost everything to some degree, even if it's only like 30% of the job, 20% of the job, that kind of thing. And so we have different audiences that would create content for, and, we'd have our primary and secondary, tertiary, and like, we really look at the priorities. We had a very small team back then. Now we have a very big team. So we do crank it out. We focus on, both the SEO value of it, as well as certainly the user value of it, that once users are on the site.
Yep. And I imagine you love press releases. I mean, do you have any tips there or anything around creating one or sharing one?
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to, with press releases, it's generally better to be something on trend, something that, you know, journalists are looking for. We've leaned in pretty heavily over the years into surveys, and trying to, you know, and that's tricky because you need a base, you know, you need a solid base, but trying to have some good data to share. We find journalists love data, especially if it's good data. But taking this out of the context, well, I'll tie it to the context. We didn't start with press releases back in the day. We really started with relationships with journalists. I mean, it sounds very, very simple, but it is, was very key. And I used this in my first company as well. We were able to get some astounding press in my first company because we reached out, we'd read an article that a journalist had written, and we'd reach out, like, hey, we really love that article. That was great. Here's what I like. Thank you so much. And here's, by the way, if you're ever writing another article, here's some information that we have. Would love to talk to you sometime. And kind of just actually focus on some grassroots relationship marketing.
Mhm.
And I still recommend that, you know, being very strategic in your industry. There are probably certain journalists that cover your topic or topics more regularly than others. Journalists, and I've heard this straight from journalists, have very healthy egos and they love having them stroked. So the more you know, give them that and then make their jobs easier by giving them information that they can use, that's a really fantastic way to do it. And just, you know, be brazen, like networking with journalists. I mean, my first company, I was like 21 and so intimidated by everything, but we ended up like getting our way onto MTV back then. I was interviewed by Kurt Loder, like,
On
which is one of my
MTV.
best, like, I know, you know, two truths and a lie kind of thing I can use. But that was all through kind of like meeting somebody who happened to work at MTV and then like working through all of it, and be scrappy, you know, be scrappy and not across the board because it does take time, but strategically. We did the same thing with CNN. We did the same thing with others, and we were able to leapfrog our press, certainly local press too, if you have a local story. But think of your story as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and that can also be just a big relationship builder that can help.
Do you have a PR firm now? Or do you do it on in-house?
We've always done it in-house. Well, actually, we've over the years, my investors in this company did not want me to spend any money on PR because they didn't believe it would work. Because in all of their other companies, portfolio companies, it had never worked.
Yeah.
It had always been a waste of money. Any PR, let alone agencies. And we did work with some outsourced people a couple times, and they weren't long term. And I did end up hiring internally part-time. Pretty early on,
Yeah.
and just kind of coaching the person in the strategy I was using, which is again relationship building, and then being organized from there. And we do use Cision, like the PR Web Cision database, like we've used that for a very long time to reach out and distribute. But it can be a really exciting growth strategy for sure, and it's great for SEO and backlinking.
Yeah. All right. We appreciate your time, Sarah. Just a few more questions for you, and then we'll let her go. So this is a hard question, but like, you know, valuing a job board. I've helped a number of companies value their job board before selling. It's always a, you know, beauty in the eye of the beholder type of thing. But do you have any general advice here for how to value how you valued Flex Jobs, you know, going into that whole discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is kind of well, these might be in slightly different order for different people at different times, but one of them is get your house in order. And that's like legal, financial, like your historical, your story. And that's for your own perspective, for your own good too. Because one of my other points or tips is to be honest with yourself. So you might have told yourself a story of like how great this can be, how much I can get, but like do your housekeeping. Like see what it looks like really, and so that can help guide your expectations and strategies. I think looking at the competitive landscape is really helpful in general. If there have been any transactions, or just seeing what's out there, how unique are you in the space, how strong are you in the space, and then I think it's important to kind of assess what you need help with all of those, whether it's honesty or getting your house in order, or maybe competitive research. But I had a lot of help with my board. We had a great lawyer. Like, I think that there's parts, I'm the first to say I'm not like an accountant or CFO. That's never been my favorite part. I love math and I love Excel, but I do not love those other parts. And
Yes.
so those are really important to kind of like prep on like you want to do kind of like your own due diligence, the same you would do as if you're about to start a company and you want to do your due diligence to see if there's really good opportunity there. Do the
Like,
due diligence for
what
this.
were some of the questions that Bull was asking you? You know, like, give me a sense of what type of things to prepare for there.
Um, I am not going to be able to answer those questions,
Okay.
unfortunately, due to just stuff
Yep.
with transactions. But I think that, you know, what I would say is that around like looking at the strategy, like Bold wasn't, you know, out of the gates who we were looking at as well. And getting an idea of like who you want to buy you, I think
Yeah.
is really important. They're going to ask how strong your business is. I mean, that's like you know, that's what everybody's getting to. And what's the, you know, why would they want to buy it? So think through that story. Why would it be a unique asset for them? I think that like you can look up, you know, investment thesis or something like that on, you know, ChatGPT or what's a good investment thesis template, and look at that and basically like plug your stuff in there.
Yeah.
You want to be coming with a story and a compelling one, and be able to back it up with numbers, as to why they should buy you and why, and also be really clear on like what are your weaknesses, because they will be asking about those. And a lot of the process of this stuff is you being transparent. So being clear again, all of this is to like having your house in order, but I think that's really important.
Was it a
You know,
stressful process for you?
oh yeah, of course. It's always, yeah, I'm sure like I've had two kids and I know most of the audience here is male, but I will just say like I know that there are women who have amazing births that happen, like go so easily, so fast, etc. And I thankfully did have my second child was that way. But I even though I've had the other where it was so hard and so painful, I will always hope that more of the easy ones happen. And so
Yeah.
with acquisitions, it's very similar in a lot of ways to you hope that they can be really easy and friendly and collaborative. And but I think from experiences friends of mine have had from, you know, kind of what you read about acquisitions and such, anytime lawyers are involved, and you have to have lawyers involved, it kind of depends to some degree on the lawyer's
Yeah.
dispositions too, on
I
how
remember when I
it's
sold
going to
my
go.
company, when I sold my job board, the law firm, like like getting that money is like pretty exciting, right? But like it went to the law firm first, and then they paid me. It kind of took all the excitement out of it. You know,
Mhm.
I was like, oh, I wanted to see that giant check in my account, but
Yeah,
I,
well,
I had to wait
I just
the
say
lawyer
listen
took
to
their
your
cut
gut
first.
too. It's hard. It's one of the hardest, you know, milestones because for me, Flex Jobs is one of my babies. I literally started it when I had my first child, and they were very parallel in growth in a lot of ways. And it's you know it's an it's an emotional process. I also a good friend recommended to me, and I would share this too, is try to take some quiet moments and like sit down and think about what you really want now out of the deal, and then what you want in a year, to be really clear on like not just now, but where do you see this going? Do you want to stay with the company? Do you want to switch roles? Do you want to like give yourself some clear thinking on what you really want? You won't get all of it most likely, but maybe, who knows?
Yeah.
And then on the way out, like or like in the year, what do you want to be doing?
Yeah.
Very helpful to check yourself too, like once you're in it, to check pulse that so that you haven't let yourself get off the rails emotionally.
Nice. Well, I appreciate your time today, Sarah. Any last questions for Sarah while we got her? Here's your chance. Give you one more question from the audience if you want to ask one. We'll save the selling questions. I'll answer those. Somebody answer those after she leaves. But anything else
No,
for Sarah?
it's a pleasure. I mean, and I've been like everyone, you know, starting job boards and sites is a passion project, and we all have a lot of the same struggles with the revenue model and the chicken and egg question, right? The employer or the job seeker first, and how do you balance those? And I've worn every hat in the company over the years, and love them all for in so many ways. And so just running a company how you really believe it should be run is really important, and you have that chance.
Awesome. Well, Sarah, again, thank you very much. Pleasure to talk to you today, and thanks for the advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Say goodbye to her. All right. We are almost done, guys. Yeah, she's great. It's an amazing company, and definitely, if you're looking for a role model in the job world, Sarah and Flex Jobs are definitely part of that. All right, let's talk about the selling questions here. So now we're in the last part of the show where ask me anything about job boards. So so get your questions ready. I want to hear about your challenges you're having out there, specific questions. We'll just kind of do a free for all consulting call here essentially. So let's start with what job boards platforms offer the charge the seeker feature. So I know Smart Job Board does. You can charge them and have like a private job board on there. I don't know of any others that do today. And Martin, does Jobico allow you to feature a resume or thing, or?
Yeah, so there's multiple ways of monetization on the platform. A very good way of doing that is taking a look at third-party services like Talent Inc. or Rightsy. I think Brandon is here. Lots of great products that also allow you to build kind of a reverse job board or monetize the candidate side. Overall, I think it's a very difficult. It can be an add-on, but it's usually not your main revenue stream on a job board. On a job board, if we look at our 300 customers all across the globe, we also did some custom work for a couple of clients that had very specific candidate-oriented products, if you wish. But yes, so there's I would usually recommend looking at third-party integrations first. It's the most easy way to monetize job seekers.
Nice. Do you have any clients right now, that have some kind of paid offering for the seekers?
Yeah, so one of our customers currently looking into, I think it's something similar like Nick promoted. It's kind of a highlighting feature for job seekers. It's a little bit. It's also more about standing out in the crowd. So it's a site with roughly 2 million resumes on the site, and they want to offer. And it depends on it depends on the labor market, where the labor market is at the moment. If there is more people seeking, then it's you're much more open for providing services like that and offering these standout functionalities.
Yeah, definitely. All right, here. I can see the questions coming in fast and furious here. So let me see. Let me just catch up.
Maybe just one note. If you use the Q&A tool, so you have two options to chat. So there's the chat feature, but there's also
I'm in the
Q&A.
chat. I'm also in the Q&A too.
Yeah, so if people are using the Q&A tool, it's easier for Chris to track the
Yep. All right, here. So let's just run through the chat real quick. Make sure I didn't miss anything. What's your thoughts on a .com versus .net or .io? Get it .com. It's always my preferred domain name. .com always. Yep. Nick, no, go to jobs.google.com, not cloud. For that, it should be in there. All right. Carla asks, have you seen anyone use a job board within a bigger site if you want to add things that aren't included with the job board site, especially if you are using this as an add-on? Yeah, I've seen newspapers, magazines, add a job board section, things like online publishers. And it's usually on a subdomain, jobs.business.com, whatever it is, but that can work. So, all right, back to the questions. Ferdinand asks, do you have experience with multilingual international job boards? How do you scale and rank in new countries and regions? Any general tips or best practice examples? Okay, I'm going to lean on Martin for this because he's in Austria. He's probably deals a lot of multiple lingual stuff. I will say that it's some of the job board softwares give you like one language to basically launch with. Some may have some instances where you can add more languages to it, but Martin, how do you guys handle multilingual job boards? Give me some thoughts around that.
Yeah, so great questions. So especially in Europe, you have a lot of multilingual questions, like countries like Switzerland, Belgium, Netherlands. They are like surrounded by and lift up by more diverse groups. So you have more international audience also on the job sites. So on the one hand, we offer a multilingual capability on the site, so you can basically translate it in multiple different languages and offer the overall experience in multiple different languages. When it comes to the job content itself, job content is usually not translated. And the reason is that typically employers post the job content in their own preferred language. And they also want to have candidates speak the language when they apply for the job. So we have some sites that have multiple different languages on the job board for the different countries or language areas in that space. In terms of SEO, it's very difficult. So I don't know if Nick, you can also share a couple of examples, but in terms of SEO, you really need to focus usually on where you're really strong, because if you run a multilingual site, and if you do one of the languages wrong, it can also harm the other languages. So you may do a good job on English, but if you do a bad job on your German version, then it's usually bad. Nick.
So this is a very advanced and difficult thing to get correct. So I just wrote down it's called hreflang. Basically, what you have to do is you have to map the different versions of your sites to one another and feed that directly to Google. And if you break that linking of any of them, this gets even more difficult the more variations. If you just have a US and a Spanish version, you kind of do one-to-one and it's pretty easy. But once you start doing, Spanish, German, English, UK, there's just so many different variations. So instead of being able to go any deeper than that, what I would recommend is if anybody's doing that, just to make sure that they look into what's called hreflang, and I put that into the webinar chat.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. Sheila asks, what conferences do you recommend attending? Well, I think that depends on what niche you're in. But if general HR stuff, I mean, there's a bunch of them. I'm going to one Friday actually in Austin called Talent Live. There's one in Vegas a week after that called HR Transform. There is TA Tech's having one in DC, HR Tech in September out in Vegas. So there's a bunch of those. But if you have a niche job board, you look at some of the industry niches, industry conferences that also happen around that stuff. Let's see here. For Nick, what would you consider or have experience using WordPress official WP Job Manager plugin?
So I have seen it, but I don't have enough experience with it specifically. I suspect it's going to be just kind of what Chris had said. I think it'll take you probably 80% of the way. And then anything that, is missing or it's just a feature you'd like, unfortunately, you will have to have like a developer involved. So I guess I'd go between the two solutions we have, some of these companies that have it out of the box that can allow all of us to build sites kind of overnight. And then there's how much do you want to control? And if you're a control freak like me, you chose all of it at an expense.
All right. Next up, Zev asks, Chris, wondering if you have any advice for getting journalists to give you coverage to your job board. I mean, it's really about like following them on, social media, Twitter, or whatever, and, trying to start, retweeting them or liking their stuff, get on their radar a bit, I guess. And then eventually they'll maybe know your name. And when you do want to hit them up, but yeah, like Sarah said, the trend stuff is good. Just follow their stuff, become a reader of theirs, and provide some value when it comes to whatever you're pitching them with. Let's see here. Sheila, when working with programmatic ad agencies, how do you resolve differences in the click-through numbers, my dashboard versus their dashboard? That's a good question. You generally have to go by their dashboard. I mean, I've got a site now. I won't say the platform it's on, but all the views are like, there's no way I'm getting all the views it says I'm getting. So I don't know who to trust there with the job board software. So it's a harder thing. I don't know what platform you're on, but what platform you're working with, Sheila? Anonymous. Other than Java Code, Niceboard, Smart Job, what are best to recommended job board software platforms? So there's like 20 or so different job board softwares on the market. I like the newer ones and some of the older ones that have been around for a while, like JavaGo, Smart Job Board. Niceboard's one of the newer ones. Job Boardly, I think they're on the show today. What else? My advertisers I'm drawing blanks now for some reason. Job Board IO, they used to be in my top choices, not anymore. I think after ZipRecruiter bought them, they basically have like done nothing with the product. So I don't recommend them anymore. There's one not to get. Um, uh, if I were you, but JBoard, that's the one I was thinking about. JBoard. They're all JBoard, Niceboard. They're all job board. They're all solid little job board things. They're not fully featured yet in terms of like what Jobico Smart Job Board can provide, in my opinion. But they're good getting out of the gate. They're cheap. They're easy, and they do the job. So for what they do it well. Let's see here. I answered that one. Oh, we answered that one. Yep. Last question. Did that one. Job postings are down for pretty much everybody. ZipRecruiter's fourth quarter revenue fell 35% year over year. Is there some sales and marketing strategy that's particularly valuable when things are down like this? Inside sales rather than outside sales, that sort of thing. Okay. So yes, I just did a post about ZipRecruiter's earnings. So they made in 2023, ZipRecruiter made $635 million. And that's like 200 plus million short of where they used to be. Like I think in 21, maybe they would have had something like $850 million, something like that, as their annual revenue. So you can see how far they've come as far as the market goes, right? All the big job boards are down. Indeed, Zip, LinkedIn, you name it, they're down. It's been a pretty crappy year for the overall job board market. Employers are just, they pull back and they're not coming back as quickly as they did. So it is a challenge out there. I think for niche job boards, I mean, to me, it's always been about quality versus quantity. That's what you're selling, right? And so you really have to play that up. It's not about getting that employer 50 different applicants. It's about getting them 5 applicants who are, somewhat qualified. And I've always felt that for a job board to be successful, you have to perceive to be working for the employer, meaning that as long as they're getting some applications for each job they post, they see that it's working. It may not be the best, even sometimes it's not the best applicants, as long as they see a number coming in that the site's working and they're driving applicants, whether or not they're qualified, that could be an argument, but that's the perception, right? And so you really have to make sure that you're driving enough applications to any paid postings you get today to make that a reality. Strategies, I mean, it's really about doubling down, I think, this year on content and CRM campaigns and drip campaigns and getting a good list there as well. Getting your lead straight is really a big part of that. It's really about knowing your market and finding those leads and getting those. If you can drill down into just the employers who hire your type of candidate, you got to find those people. To start generalizing your ads out there, your outreach, drill down and try and dive deep into your target market and get those employers that are the ones who are doing it. I think also adding value in a time like this too, right? Doing some free stuff for employers you may not have thought about doing. Feature them in a blog post if they post a job with you, or just feature them anyway, just to get their attention. Start building relationships with these employers, right? Become a resource for them, or help them rewrite a job listing, right? Use ChatGPT to have them to rewrite a job listing and go approach them saying, "Hey, look, I just rewrote your job listing for you. Here's some additional assistance I can offer you as far as that goes," right? It's just being a value-added resource to them, I think, is important today, which will help. But I think, and then just doubling down on content, other keywords, maybe starting a podcast, something like that. But think about new things you can do to add value to employers out there. So I hope that helps. Does anybody have any ideas as well? Feel free to chime in and answer these questions as well. All right, here, let's see. We've got Ferdinand asks, "I like your insights." So my previous question, if a job board ever wanted to sell this job board, what's the approach? Yes, thanks. I forgot about that one. Who do you contact? What do investors or potential buyers look at when they think about buying a job board? All right, so first of all, yeah, like Sarah said, you have to get your house in order. So that means basically, trying to get your sales up as much as possible before you go out and try and sell it, get your profitability up. That's the big thing. That's one of the key metrics, right? Profitability of your job board. I think when I sold mine, back in 2013, I had probably a 50% profit margin, right? That's a pretty good margin for any kind of software business. If you're only making 10% on your sales, that's not going to be it's not going to be very attractive to a buyer out there. So profitability is key. To me, and I would look at a domain, the age of a site. So like Nick's site here, I mean, that's a great domain itself, right? That's worth X amount of dollars itself, just a domain, right? Beyond the data he might have. But when you're buying a job board, you're buying the domain, you're buying the brand, you're buying the traffic, you're buying the content and the data it comes with. All that stuff is part of the valuation, in my opinion. Generally speaking, a small niche job board will sell for 2 to 3x of annual revenues. Or another way to look at it is, another stat I saw once was 10 to 50x of monthly profit, right? So if you're making 2K profit a month, and the niche is growing and it's not declining, maybe you get 20, 30x on that profit. It has to be like, when I sold my company, like I wanted 3 years of revenue out of any sale. I was making about $250K a year. I sold it for $750K, and I got $750 for it. That was enough for me to sell it. If it was just 2 years if the offer was $500K or $600K, I wasn't going to take it. It wasn't worth it. Right? I could just keep running it and you make the money. But like if the 3-year revenue mark was my selling point. So, so create a sell sheet, basically, like the little, here's why you should buy this site. Like talk about the traffic you have, profitability, the niche, that kind of stuff. If your site's on the downward decline, if it's a declining niche, you're going to get less, of course, because it's just not as interesting, and that kind of stuff. Nick's asking what lawyer fees look like. They were like, oh man, they were a lot. They were like, a couple $100 an hour. So I want to say they took probably like 30K out of that check, something like that.
I had a feeling that it was like that, but thought that'd be a good question for people to consider. Especially if you're trying to sell something for 50 grand, it's still going to cost 30 grand.
Right, exactly. I was kind of pissed too. They're like, oh, we're gonna get the money first. I'm like, what? Doesn't it go to my bank account first? No, the lawyer wanted their cut right away.
Shocker.
They didn't want to wait for it. Yeah, that was annoying. All right, here, let's see. 12 months ago, everyone was talking about pay per application being the model. That's not going to work. Indeed killed that. Indeed botched it. It's just too hard. I mean, pay-per-click is much easier to sell. Because as all the redirects happening in the job board space, once that job seeker leaves the job board and goes to the employer's website, you've done your job as the job board. Like in my opinion, that's it. You wash your hands of that click, because now it's up to the employer to convert that candidate, and that's a whole another bag of tricks there that you have barriers you have to go through there. So that's why I think pay-per-click is still the only way to do that. All right, here. Let's see here. Adam asked, big picture view, who or will anyone emerge in the next 3 to 5 years to displace the big guys? Good question. Well, everyone thought it was going to be Google, but that's not happening because they're not going ahead with their plans for buying Google job ads in there. And I question too how much Google's heart is in Google job listings. So I wouldn't be surprised if one day they gave up Google for jobs. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them. They've shut down stuff before, and the fact that they killed the ad program within that is a sign that they've got bigger problems to work with, to work around. So that's not going to happen. I don't think there's any big players coming out in the next 3 to 5 years. I think AI remains to be seen how it's going to affect job search. Like I was talking with Fred Goff, the CEO of Jobcase, about what the job search, is going to look like in 3 to 5 years. Like we were talking about, maybe it's going to be like more of a chatbot experience versus a keyword location, type in on Indeed or whatever. Maybe it's going to be more of a chatbot experience where AI basically does all the aggregation for you and gives you career advice in your resume and that kind of stuff. That's probably where we're going. That's a little bit ways away, but because you're seeing some like resume tools now come out with with AI generated stuff and automatic applying things like that. So that's kind of where I see things going. But I think Indeed's not going anywhere unless Google stops, sending SEO traffic. But who knows when that all right, here. We got some stuff in the chat. John's open to selling his job boards, IT job cafes. Check him out. Free trials can be a low friction way to get companies to try it. Yeah, the one thing about free trials is that I've tried it before. Believe it or not, it's hard to give that away. Like I had a job board where I gave away free for listings in the HR space. Nobody came. I couldn't give them away. So be wary of that. So, and if you do get one, like make sure that free job gets some traffic. Otherwise, they're not going to come back and pay you. Martin, if you're running an evaluation of the best tech for your job board, take a look at the criteria provided and make her, JobCo's got some resources there. Check them out. At the beginning, when buying paid ad campaigns, such as Google ads to drive traffic to your site, how do you determine an appropriate budget? Basically, whatever you can afford. I've got a campaign now I'm running for HR tech job. I'm just paying like $3 a day or whatever. I'm not throwing a ton of resources at it. I did get my first paid job listing the other day, which was nice. How do you avoid overspending? Yeah, you set a daily budget on your Google ads. You can do as little as $3 a day, I think, something like that. So whatever you can comfortable with, a couple $100, $500, $1,000. It's really whatever your budget can afford. Let's see. Let me just make sure we're answering all these. Adam asks, what are some of the best free traffic analytics tools out there to get third-party verification of a site's traffic? So I use StatCounter. I use Google, although I hate Google, the new Google statistics. It's just not easy. StatCounter I use a lot because it's just easy. SimilarWeb, I know, is one of those out there, like a third-party tool you can look at. That's good for our research too, like other sites, though it's not always accurate. What do you use for stats, Nick?
I use primarily just Google Analytics 4, and then I'll use some third party if I'm looking at someone else's site, like SEMrush or SimilarWeb, just to get estimates to how much traffic they're getting.
Yep.
And then Chris, as you had said too, I think everybody should be making sure that they have Google Search Console set up.
Yeah.
I think some people, we just assume because it's automatic for us, but a lot of people do not have that set up, and that is a completely free tool that will tell you how many clicks and impressions you're getting from Google specifically.
Right, just go to search.google, is it search.google, or is it
I think they switched it out. I just put Google Search Console into Google, trust it to do its job.
Yeah, just give them your sitemap XML file and let them do their thing. Once you set it up. So Carla asks, if you are in your industry where you are going to develop your job board, what does ramp up time look like for revenue? Okay, so great question. Relationship audience already, she says she has. So I just launched my HR tech job board back in January. I got my first paid posting, I don't know, last week. So that took about 2 months. Now I wasn't doing a ton of marketing on it, although I did use it in my existing networking channels and stuff and on my podcast for RecTech. But I would say that, first of all, Carla, you need to worry the first 6 months just building up your job seeker traffic and not worry about making money. Because really today, the hardest thing to get today for a job board is the job seekers to come to your site. Employers are easy to get. They're everywhere. They're all hiring. You know where to find them. Where you can't find are the seekers that come and post a resume and sign up for job alerts. So you really have to take that first initial 6 months, sometimes a year, just concentrated on building your job seeker audience. And that means a lot of content, community creating, social media, maybe a podcast or two. Excuse me. And focused on building that audience, because without them, you're never going to succeed in the long run, right? The employers are when it comes to the chicken and the egg, it's the job seekers. They come first, because they are the hardest people to find right now. So you really have to spend, and it's going to take you time to do that, right? So that's why I say a year. Any new client I have, look, you got to be in this for at least a year. It's going to take you that long just to build a base of an audience for whatever niche you're going to. So that's the answer there.
I'll just echo what you said, Chris, in the sense of the first year that I did SEO jobs, it was just dumping money into it after even paying for the domain. I wondered many, many times whether I should stop and if it actually is going to work, but
Yep.
I see it turning, and it's
Yeah,
been
it just
about
takes
a year and
time,
a
right?
half.
It takes
Yeah.
time for the site to bake inside of Google's SEO, and it takes time for people to come and know that you exist, right? It just takes time.
I think that's where the testimonials and like word of mouth really help too, because that's honestly like I realize we talk about SEO and marketing, but just people better understanding that your site exists. Like they just don't know that it's there. It's not even
Yeah.
a choice
And you
to
have to
not use
remind them it exists constantly.
it. Right.
The newsletter, yeah, you have to because they forget. They're
When I
not
go
going
to conferences, I print a t-shirt that literally says SEOjobs.com on my back. If I could get
go.
5 people to look at it like that have never heard of it, it's like,
Guerrilla marketing, love it.
yep.
Yeah. I had a client, I don't know the client, Trade Hounds, which runs a mobile-based job board for construction. They had a great thing where they printed out stickers for all their new members, and they mailed the stickers out to everybody who joined their platform. Well, those guys put them on their hard hats, and they walked around the construction sites all day with the Trade Hound sticker. That was like their big number one marketing tactic to get people. That was fantastic. Obviously, you can't do that with a remote job, but that's a great little tactic there for construction workers.
I think it was a little bit easier in the past to get traction quickly. I remember when the Google Jobs API came out, it was very easy to get a couple of clicks just by posting it to the API. So Google got way more sensitive in really trying to understand like what is the domain authority of this new site. And when you're a new site, you usually don't have domain authority. So it needs time to build up this authority.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the very important points is we talked about backfill a little bit, is to be careful about duplicate content. So if the majority of your job content is backfill and you send this to the index, it may backfire to your ranking. So make sure that the level of unique content is high, and if you do backfill, then don't send it to the API.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get traffic on it anyway if you have it on there from Google. So, but good stuff, Martin. Let's see here. When there are weeks or months with low revenue, I'm sometimes panicking, always scared that this was it, and I need to close down soon. Do you need to? Do you believe niche job boards will continue to be relevant in the future? If you make them relevant, they will be, right? I have a post I'm working on about the 4 truths of job boards, and like, look, employers are always going to need a place to post jobs. That's just a fact of life, right? So job boards are never going away. So it's really about, it depends on the niche for them. Like your niche has to be one that is a viable niche too. There are such things as picking a niche is too small or too narrow, or even too big, right? Like I had a client the other day ask me about, okay, Chris, I want to start a remote job board. And I stopped right there. There's already 50 different remote job boards online. You're not going to make a dent in that market. Okay. So it's about picking the right niche too out there. In terms of traffic partnerships, buying CPC traffic rate feeds, what are the out of box ideas? Just pursuing. I mean, there's a variety of places to get job traffic from or jobs from. I'm looking at some like partnerships now with some of the ETSs out there. Potentially, they have marketplaces. Like ADP is a marketplace. You get your site listed in there or stuff like that. Let's see here. What time we got? 3:47. We got 13 minutes. In I'm planning to launch a job board or an industry that has basically 1 to 2 dominant boards in the US and 1 to 2 in Europe. Dominant player in the US is more of a content site that has a job as an afterthought. Okay. Jobs never to be filled out. The jobs to be filled are often contract for a few thousand. Seems to range from $38. How do you approach this opportunity? Okay. That's a lot of questions there. I'm looking at it. Filled are often contract. I don't know. It's a long question there, Fred. I'm drawing a blank here. Anybody else got a answer for Fred there? I mean, you got to establish your niche. Undercut them as far as pricing goes. Crank out some content in the first 3 to 6 months, and
Fred, that's a great opportunity to follow up with Chris directly. I think, Chris, it could be a great, longer discussion about those questions.
Yeah, if you want to break down your niche, Fred, on a consulting call, it's probably a better place to do that. But I can then look at the niche, look at the other sites, and give you a little more context around that stuff. So yeah, thanks, Martin. David asks, anybody come up with good ways to show employers that our particular applicants at their ATS got it to a via an ad on a particular job board? I can put the counter, give them a number. You can throw a UTM code on your site there so that they can see it, as long as they can track that. That's really the only way to give attribution from your job board to theirs. But it's really on their end where they have to enable that attribution. I know some ATSs have like a drop down list of where did you find this job, and there's X number of job boards on that list. Most times that list is not going to have your job board on there. It's going to have the bigger ones. So if they're a client of yours, asking them to put them on as a referral source for their seekers. But other than an ETM code, there's not much you can do, and it's really up to them to kind of look at that data. And a lot of employers are bad at that stuff in terms of just knowing where the traffic's coming from, in my opinion.
You may try to convince the employer to use your own process that you provide via your platform. So you kind of
or you can basically force your employer to have the applies happen on your job board, and then they have to log in to see.
It became a more common practice to make it easy for employers and say, don't even send me your jobs. I'm gonna set up a crawler, going to AspenTech or whoever does the crawling, and get the jobs on the site. So, and then the link goes back to the ATS, and that's a big problem because the ATS usually have a worse experience for the candidate than job boards. Job boards are optimized for candidate experience. It needs to work. Everybody needs to understand in a second what to do, and it needs to be super fluent. On an ATS, this is more built for a recruiter, and the recruiter is in-house. They use it as a process tool. So that's why there's usually there's this gap between the ATS process and the job board process. And there's so many companies now trying to solve this problem. It's still unsolved, at least to my understanding.
Yeah, it's one of the challenges of the job board world and making that all work. It's also a frustration for the seeker too when they go, get redirected. So, all right, here. So some questions in the chat. Nick's got one. You say the audience first, and then getting the job posters easy. How do you go about getting in front of those job posters? I wouldn't call it easy. That's one of my questions I was going to ask you. I forgot to ask you about how do you target employers, or if you don't. But yeah, I went and bought a list on LeadCandy, and I started email marketing to them. That's the simple, easy thing to do. And then on social media, and looking for the jobs they post on LinkedIn and commenting on those, and maybe throwing a discount code out there, things like that. But you really have to prospect, and
that's been my approach as well. I was just curious. I had thought and probably misheard that you said that part was easy, so
Well,
just
it's
in case
easier,
I'd be
yeah, I would say, yeah.
silly. It's like if there was a cheat code, I'm gonna just be the silly guy that asks for it. Yeah.
Yeah, generally speaking, look, it's easier to find an employer today and target them to use your site versus getting a job seeker. Right?
Yeah.
You can't go buy a list of a job seeker somewhere. You can go buy a list of an employer.
Here's one quick question, Chris. I don't want to necessarily take over this, but since I'm on the panel,
Yep.
has anyone ever done old school like marketing in the sense of like use Lead Candy to get these people's addresses and then send like postcards, like just at scale? Like
So when I ran my local job boards, I did postcard marketing.
okay, because that's something I've been thinking about doing is like all the SEO agencies across the US. I could send out 20,000 of them.
Hell yeah, try it. Yeah, I actually with mine, I had a VA back, well, not a VA assistant back then, and we'd actually handwrite the on the back of the card. And actually on the back of the card, in script writing, it was printed, but it was script. It looked like handwriting.
Love it.
One of those like you see people probably getting junk mail today, like from realtors and stuff. It looks like an actual handwritten thing. Yeah, that was great. It worked actually. That was 10 years ago, but
And you could use a specific coupon per thing if
Mhm.
you really wanted to get crazy.
Yep.
Awesome. No, thanks for sharing that.
No problem. All right, there's a lot more questions here. Let's see. I'm stuck in the chat right now, so I'll get back to the Q&A in a second, but let's see here. Lauren asks, earlier someone asked how to get journalists to pay attention to your job board. As a publisher, I own 3 news publications. In addition to my job board, I see 2 big mistakes that PR seekers make. First, they want us to publish articles when there's nothing newsworthy. Yep, I get those today too. People pitch us for coverage, but they are thinking about their SEO rather than interesting news. Yep. Yeah, like if you're a job board today, and by the way, I have a service called RightTagPR.com that is a industry only news wire. So instead of using a PR web or one of those national things, if you want to be seen by employers and recruiters, you can use RegTechPR.com to do that. And I get you guaranteed coverage across all my news sites. But what I was going to say is that when you're pitching PR, like tell a story. Like don't just pitch that you've launched or whatever. Tell a story in that, right? Why did that? Why is it important? Like I'll give you a quick example. Like, and this is I used a press release from a company that it's more of a content thing, but I used a press release that went viral 2017. So I was scouring press release wires for stories, came across this story about a company who'd done a study about remote work. And it read really well. It read like a story, like an article, had a bunch of stats in there that they quoted about why people like to work from home. And I took that, I changed the title, changed the opening paragraph, and I published it as a blog post on a site called Job Fairing that was running at the time. Job Fairing was a job fair search engine for instead of jobs, job fairs. So anyway, I posted it on my LinkedIn and it started going viral on me. I got like 600,000 views. I got like thousands of comments, shares, likes. I got like 10,000 clicks to my site in like 2 days. All from a press release that I grabbed because it told a great story. Right. Now that company got mentioned in the article, of course. I think it's called Owl Labs. Remember the name? But that story resonated with me, right? It was a great press release because it had stats in there about a trend, and it was interesting. And I took it and ran with it. That's how you get stuff noticed, you gotta tell a story and follow FlexJobs lead, what they do, survey your niche, right? Do that kind of stuff. That stuff gets people attention. The fact that you won an award has zero news value to any kind of reporter. So keep that in mind. Ryan asked, how long does it take to get out of this Google sandbox? I don't know, Ryan. It depends on what your site is. We can maybe do a deep dive on that if you want, but did you submit your sitemap to Google in the Search Console? Is all your jobs schemaed correctly back end? I saw your site, by the way. It looks a little I don't know what software you're using or if it's just WordPress, whatever, but if it's WordPress, you may have some issues there with schema. But sounds like a deeper dive needed there. I'm still not ranking for HR tech stuff. It's 2 months into it. I'm not really ranking that much for that HR tech site that I have. I've used Lead Candy, pretty good. I give it an A. Yeah, the leads are pretty good on there. I mean, you do I'd say 10% of the leads you get from that list are probably bad, but 90% is pretty good. SourceStack is a great tool for if you want some scraping done for certain jobs. I found the SourceStack with Alec there. He can do some really granular backfilling for you if you want certain job titles and stuff like that. So he's pretty good with that. Whereas the other ones are a little
SEOjobs.com.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. Some of the bigger players, you just give them job titles and they do a pretty good job. But beyond that, it gets a little iffy. But you can use a service like handywritten.com to automatically have handwritten letters written and mailed. Oh, interesting. That's pretty cool. That's interesting. Handwritten with a Y. How many post articles should you job board have at the start? Like I said, start with two a week. That's my cadence for a new job board. If you can't do that, at least do one a week, right? But have some kind of cadence there, and don't do a bunch and then stop. Just do it consistently over time. Even if you don't do one a month, just make sure you do one a month, every month, right? 6 to 9 months, probably. Yep. Yeah. Why 2 a week? I don't know. That's just you want to get yourself in the habit of writing, first of all. And 4 a month is not really a lot. So if you do 8 a month, that's better. Yeah. More content you have, more traffic you get. That's the general rule of thumb, guys. Yeah, I'll put your SourceStack URL in the link in the chat there for the audience. All right, some more questions here. Are job board resume databases important anymore since most job boards just redirect ATS? So the answer is no, I'd say. They're not as important as they used to be. However, if you do have a big one, like my client does, they're still useful because they can be used as kind of give them away for free for employers. But generally speaking, no, there's not a lot of money in resumes. So put it that way. How do job boards connect with all the ATSs in this world that so many employers use? How to partner with them? So, like the big job boards, well, there's a tool called JobSync, jobsync.com, which is middleware between sites like Indeed and ZipRecruiter and all the ATSs out there. And so employers use JobSync to integrate with an Indeed so that when somebody applies on Indeed with the quick apply, it goes into their ATS automatically instead of having to redirect the seeker. That's the holy grail of the job board world. Unfortunately, there's hundreds of ATSs out there. There's thousands of job boards. And so unless JobSync gives it away for free, it's always gonna be an issue. I think if your job board's big enough, you could approach JobSync about integrating, but it's a cost you may have to help bear or something like that in terms of the connection there. But there is a solution out there, but it's kind of paid for by employers at this point. Let's see. I don't know about clarify the question on the multi-postings feature there. I'm not sure what the question is. The resume writing building marketplace seems extremely fragmented with hundreds of thousands of smaller players. Do you see anyone emerging to consolidate the industry? If so, yeah, Talent Inc. is the biggest player, top resume, top CV. I have stopped using them lately because they just haven't really. I put them on employee diversity. Actually, is one of the things I tried, but we just didn't generate any clicks. And in fact, Talent still owes me $50. They never paid me 5 years ago. So, but I don't see anything. Some of the resume AI tools are coming up now. Might be, might gain some traction. That's my answer there, Adam. Employers use the ATS automatically post their jobs. Indeed, how do we get in that listing, especially for a paying job? I don't know. There are some Smart Job Board has a marketplace that I know some job boards are listed in. Maybe Workable has one too, so you can explore some of the ATSs at being a partner of theirs and getting in their marketplace. ADP has one, Workday has one, so you can go look and approach them and see if you can get in that way. 2400 ATS product, yeah, I'm sure there are. 2 weeks helps with content velocity, which helps Google understand you are a proper business. Yeah. If you have 100 posts written, you can also drip into them. Yeah. And another point about content, Ryan, like this is just for like the first year, right? You want to crank out content for that first year. As you age, you can stop writing as much, right? Because that content will have baked inside of Google. You should be getting SEO traffic on it, right? So you can slow your cadence over time. But in the beginning, the first year, 2 a week. That's my advice. And for you, maybe I know you're a local site, a city site. Maybe it's more like 5 a month or something like that. But you still has to be a decent amount of cadence there. It can be, yeah, it can be overwhelming to create content, right? But if you're launching a job board today, again, you're an internet marketer. Internet marketing requires content. There's just no way around it. You can try without you could buy traffic without it, but again, you're going to spend money. It's a way for you to get traffic that doesn't cost you anything. And then it helps to drive traffic to you over time on a regular basis. That's what SEO is for, right? So SEO is one of the only ways you can get content or get traffic essentially for free. It's not free, you have to create it, but it is it's part of the strategy. Yeah, leverage AI. If you can't write, just have AI write it and just post that stuff. I mean, Nick, what do you think about that? At least he's doing something.
I just wrote, I mean, I kind of have a little bit of a different take on AI. I don't think we should ever just let it spit it out and then copy and paste as it is. But I think something is better than nothing. But I also am a firm believer in like consistency over quantity. So we've been saying 2 a week, 3 a week or whatever. But honestly, if you can create something that's awesome and only do it once a quarter, I'd rather go that way than 8 pieces of AI content that you're just saying, what are the top skills for X job? And then you just recreate it because the internet's full of that.
Yeah.
And Google's going to come after you. But if you can sit down and write, a paragraph per night and then once per week, once per month, write something of value and maybe AI helps you, like I promise you that's going to help you. It's just going to kind of extend that line of how long it takes until it starts working.
Yeah, that's good. Good ad there. David asks, I love the idea of selling an employer the ability to post however many jobs they want, X dollars per month, rather than paying for jobs one at a time. Okay. Maybe even scrape their in-house careers page for them. Yep. Okay. How would you set the fee for that? You can either do it on like a monthly basis, monthly unlimited, or monthly yearly or yearly unlimited. That's generally how I price that out. It could be like $1.99 a month for unlimited or X amount of jobs, or do it for the year. It's just if you do it for the year, it's generally a higher price point, usually, $1 grand, $2 grand, something like that. It also depends on the industry as well. If it's a high paying industry, maybe they want to pay more. If it's a low cost industry, blue collar, hourly, they're not going to have as big of a job advertising budget. So you're going to have to have lower prices, I think, or limit as a number of jobs can be posted during a month. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of selling credits. That gets like a little confusing a bit with clients. So just keep it simple. You get X number of postings per month or per year, whatever it is. I don't like credits as a product because it just confuses the employer. All right, guys, it's 4:06. My throat is dry, and we've been talking for 3 hours here. Hope you guys had a great time today. Hope you got a lot out of this. Again, follow up with me if you want to kind of one-on-one consults. Chris@jobboardsecrets.com. I will post this on YouTube in the coming days with a password, so I'll email everybody. And I think you can get it on demand. I'm not sure how it works with Zoom here, but Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys coming. Nick and Martin, thanks for sticking around. Love the additional ad there, and glad I didn't have to do this alone. So it was a lot of fun hanging out with you guys.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Chris.
All right, buddy.
Bye,
See you next year. Job Board Con 2025. Later, guys.